Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news discussion and, of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. Although today we're not going to be talking about the Cosmere. We're going to be talking about Starsight. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm WeiryWriter.
Also joining me is Alyx.
I'm FeatherWriter.
And also, you have a cat.
I do. Dalish really wants to be in this one. She'll probably be back.
Yeah. Also joining us is Shannon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gray.
And lastly, we have someone with terrible webcam quality, and that's Ben.
The blur. Wow.
Blur.
Wow.
I'm Ben, also known as Overlord Jebus.
Ben earlier is like, when we're making fun of his webcam, it's like, guys have dedicated webcams? I'm like, we're on video calls right now.
Who has dedicated webcams these days?
Content creators. Ben.
I don't. I'm poor. That's why I haven't been on Shardcast. I'm like,
that's right.
I'm too poor for Shardcast.
So this might not just be Shardcast today. This might be Saltcast as well, because we're talking about Starsight, and well, we have opinions, and I wanted to take this moment to just say, just because if you liked something and someone didn't, that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. And just because if you didn't like something and someone else liked it, that doesn't mean that they're bad or wrong. And just because if you didn't like something, that doesn't mean it's badly written either. It just might not be to your taste. I think,
you know, when we have to open like this, you know it's going to be a good podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be great.
It's sort of like it is a very contentious book, and we hope that actually we have a full spread of opinions. There's not a staff opinion about this book, even amongst us. It's like we have a very large spread.
This book we have a large spread. Although generally we are biased to like Brandon books, right? Like just to be clear, listener, if you randomly find us, we talk about Brandon Sanderson every 2 weeks on the show and moderate Brandon Sanderson things. We like Brandon Sanderson things. I know it's crazy.
So we all aren't a hive mind.
Yeah, we all have works of his that we do not particularly enjoy.
Yeah, and that's fine. And so just want to keep that in mind, that we don't want to say it's like, oh, if someone liked something you didn't, or vice versa, that they're awful people, because they're not awful people, and we can be nice to each other, even if we're like, hey, I liked or didn't like a piece of media. Mm-hmm. So talking about Starsight, let's start with like our quick thoughts, and let's go round robin on here. Ian, what do you think about Starsight?
It was not the book I was expecting.
That's true.
Yes. It took me a very long time to realize what it actually was. Because we had definitely gotten to like Starsight by the time I realized, oh, this is supposed to be the main plot. Okay.
Gotcha.
But overall, I liked it. I liked how it ended, and it's setting up some interesting things.
You good?
Yeah.
That's your hot take. That's your.
I feel like I can just feel Eric storing.
No. I think we can all agree Starsight is not what we expected from the sequel to Skyward.
That you should have waited till you got to me.
Okay, all right.
Do you want to go next?
Yeah, Alyx, go next.
Oh, I was going to say Shannon could go next.
Yeah, Shannon, go ahead. Yeah, great.
No, because I was about to say, actually, this is exactly the book I expected it to be.
Exactly?
Yeah, absolutely nothing about this was a surprise. Brennan is good at derailing expectations, so there are things that I didn't think we would get to in this book, but it's exactly what I expected, where the series was going to go. So I loved it. This is exactly what I thought, and I was always a big fan of Spencer. She was always the central point to me. So everything about it was like her story, her development, and I just had a really, really great time.
Huh. Alyx, what do you think?
I also very much enjoyed Starsight. I liked Skyward, but I wasn't like super obsessed with it. It didn't have a lot of like super deep plot hooks that grabbed me as a reader, like, oh yeah, this is totally my jam. Whereas Starsight really did. I think I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. Especially the idea of like moving out of the detritus as a setting and getting to interact with a bunch of different alien species. Like that was a plot that I was very into and enjoyed a lot.
Ben, what do you think?
I didn't like it. I did not like it a lot.
Okay, why is that, Ben?
I thought the first half, was really bad. Like I struggled because there's a lot of just getting Spencer to places and then explaining things to Spencer. Like Spencer spends a lot of time just having things explained to her for the whole first half. And there's like a space battle early on, and I'm like, I don't know anyone who's involved in this space battle, so I don't care. And I'm like skipping the fighting because I'm like, I know Spencer's going to get out of this because I just don't care. And then the second half was much better. There was a moment I can identify point it got better, but then it still never really. I just didn't like it.
Can't relate.
Yeah.
Can't relate. Yep.
Can't relate.
I think the disconnect between you two is how connected you are with Spencer and her plotline. Because
I really like Spencer.
I thought that this was not really a Skyward sequel because I felt that the characters in Skyward would have been relevant in the sequel, and they were not. Just like straight up, like all the characters in Skyward Flight that you saw, you are not seeing like any of them like after part 1, like at all, basically. They're not relevant in the ending or anything. So you have to really like Spencer and Mbot to care about the book, I feel. And I noticed on my reread that the first interlude that we get into Detritus and like the battleships come, like I feel that existential tension again that I felt in Skyward that I really liked. That like, oh, every battle's like this, like people could die, like very serious stakes. The stakes felt lower. It was a lot more political intrigue and very different in that respect. But I still liked it. Like this book is not about Detritus. Although there is some Detritus stuff, it is not about Skyward Flight. It is definitely not about Skyward Flight. And I just thought that they would be relevant, and that's why I thought that this didn't really feel like a Skyward sequel, and that was the part that surprised me. I did expect that we would get more aliens. I did expect a lot of that, but I didn't expect it to be, Spencer's going to go infiltrate and going into another flight school of aliens. Like, that was... you expected that, Shannon, in particular?
Yeah. Because I'm trying to, I didn't rewatch our Starsight predictions, but I'm trying to remember what I said. And basically the idea that Spencer was going to be on her own, being the only one who has the ability to travel to the alien species and go live among them, whatever form that took, I didn't know it was specifically going to be being a spy and going to and joining like in disguise and joining like a flight program. Not that specifically, but this whole concept, like, yeah, this is exactly what I was expecting, like from what we got at the end of Skyward. It was like this was the only real direction I thought this could go, and that's what we got. Yeah,
it's also very interesting to me that you feel like Starsight was like a de-escalation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I definitely read it as an escalation.
This is just a different kind of tension. Like this is like a spy thriller. It's not a war movie.
See, part of what I really liked about the transition from Skyward to Starsight is Skyward is about Spencer doing something she enjoys and is very personally talented at in terms of learning to fly a starfighter. And what I really liked was that Starsight, I'm going to mix those up this whole time.
I think you mean Starward or Skysight.
Stop. Starsight it took Spensa and suddenly shoved her into a situation that she has no training for and no interest or aptitude in. She's not a great liar. She's not good at, she's not trained to be a spy. She's never had any kind of intercultural interaction with anything ever. And now all of a sudden she's in this alien city hub pretending to be someone she's not. And so that felt like more of a high personal stakes to me of, we're going from Spensa learning to do something she likes to Spensa, you're in a super dangerous situation. You're not good at this, but you don't have the luxury of being bad at it.
You're the only one who can do this.
I guess.
Right. If you want to get home, you got to figure
Yeah.
this out and stay 2 steps ahead. And I loved that as like a personal character growth sort of, here's a new challenge for you. It's not something you like anymore,
I guess.
but you still got to overcome it.
I still liked the book until part 5, and then the book completely fell apart for me. Like, it wasn't what I was expecting, right? That I expected Skyward Flight to be relevant, and it wasn't. That was the surprise to me. But I was really enjoying it. But I have very serious issues with the ending, and it completely fell apart, and I feel very deflated about the entire series now.
I wasn't expecting to be the most negative. I thought, that when we left Detritus, it wasn't that I was, okay, first things, I did go back and I listened to our Starsight.
Oh, good.
predictions.
I didn't do that.
Okay, good. 'Cause you might be the only one who has this information from a year ago.
I went back and I listened to it and like, well done to us because we got it like on point. Like almost everything that we said in that podcast was 100% right. And so it was a lot of what I was expecting. It just didn't play out how I was expecting, because I was expecting it to play out in a way that where I'd enjoy it. And for me, it wasn't that it was losing the characters, losing Skyward Flight, losing Cobb, not seeing them for the vast majority of the book. I realized how much attached to them I was when we weren't, and like Spensa on her own is good, but I just wasn't that swept up in it.
I guess like losing Skyward Flight was surprising to me, but it wasn't super critical for me. Because like this is Skyward is Spensa's book. Like it's like it always like Skyward Flight is important, but kind of in terms of their relationships with Spensa. So the fact that like it's like Spensa went and found like a new group of flight members, like I didn't feel like we lost anything from not having Skyward Flight. Like, yes, it would have been nice to have them, but like based on how the book was, we couldn't have taken them with us.
Yeah, like
I completely agree.
That
because like,
how it happened. Yes.
I think that Jorgen being in the Interludes was sort of like, I think Brennan actually could have like left it for book 3. I think the reason that he didn't was just to like, that's the signal that they're still going to be important in the future. It's just that they couldn't be on this specific adventure. It was sort of like, that's kind of like how I saw the Interludes, was just like reminder and like, set up that like they are going to be coming back. It was sort of like, I think it would have been more, what's the word I want? Unbelievable. I wouldn't have bought it if the development of like the first citizens, like everyone who has the cytonics, suddenly got them in time to be relevant to the book. Like I thought that would have been, especially with like the short timeline that this actually takes place over. It's like what, like
2 weeks.
It's really 2 weeks,
2 weeks,
a month, maybe. Yeah.
Wow.
Like very, very short time. I don't think there was any kind of way that I would have believed or liked to get them there to be relevant. It's just sort of like they are going to be in the future. Like, in my opinion, like this is going to be very human centered. It's about the humans in this book, even if they're not actually shown. So it was just, I thought that it was just like a quick reminder, like, hey, don't forget about them. They're not going away, but just Here you go. Set up.
I guess I just felt like there was a really good opportunity for Skyward Flight and Spencer's New Flight to actually come together at the end, and that just didn't happen at all. Like, it just didn't
That's the thing
happen.
I wish happened as well.
And
even though I did really like the book, that was something I kind of wanted to see them like interacting over comms in the fight,
like,
trying to get Braid together, maybe something like that.
yeah, like, and that better happen, or else I will be even more salty, because like that, I felt that needed to happen. And I don't know, I got really attached to the Skyward crew, and like, yeah, it's about Spencer's story, but also like we got the entire training. It was flight school. Like, you don't have Harry Potter, and it's like after book 1, it's like, it's Harry's adventure. We're never seeing Ron and Hermione again, ever. And it's like, it's like a kind of a turn there. Even though I understand it all makes sense that it's Spencer who has to go because she has the Cytonics. I get that.
I agree that there was a turn, but that turn happened at the end of Skyward, not the beginning of this one, is my opinion. It's sort of like the ending of Skyward, that last chapter where everything is revealed about like the Krell and what is actually going on, is like the signal that the genre is about to change. So in my opinion, like that was very much the signal. And that's like, and maybe that was why, because like the entire time in between books, I was like, yeah, we're about to get something totally different. I kind of would have been more disappointed if we got more of the same.
Yeah, I definitely hadn't thought about it that way, but I definitely see that. Because up until that point, we have like one view on like what is happening, and then we get like, oh no, this is like very politically driven. Like, there's far more going on here than we knew.
I just am personally really surprised that people were expecting Starsight to be more of the same, because like to me, like the signal was very clear at the end of Skyward that it was going to take a hard turn from like Top Gun war movie into this is now going to become a sci-fi exploration of like different peoples plus Delvers, plus Eldritch.
The point you're making about this not being more of the same, we had a book about Spencer in a flight school. Trying to do some sneaky stuff and sneaking around, and then we got another book where she goes to a different flight school and has to do some sneaky stuff, sneaking around. And I'm like, for me, it's because it was so there were about I want to say a long time ago, way before the official descriptions were released. That magazine, some random magazine, managed to get the synopsis and published it in thing, and that synopsis sounded terrible. And that's what we got. And I was like, oh no.
I remember this, and I was like, oh, Ben.
I remember messaging you guys and being like, man, if this is the book, I'm not going to enjoy this book.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's like, oh, it's totally different, but it's not totally different because of Spencer going to flight school again. So it's we're getting new things. And I will say, I loved the alien politicking and learning about the superiority. And I think the races and species in Starsight are top notch.
Tiny fox gerbils.
I loved reading about all that. I loved reading about like figments. Figments are awesome. Dionys are super cool, and that mattered a lot. That was probably
Dionys.
Wow,
Diones.
that's not Diones.
Diones.
I think you're very unmatched.
That's fine.
Good old Dionys.
That works.
Sorry, I pronounced it Japanese, Alyx. Sue me.
No worries. I actually have a very controversial opinion about Starsight races.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't like the Kitsen. I know.
You're one of them.
I think you're wrong, but you're
I agree.
So they grew on me by the end of the book. But when they were originally introduced, I was like, no, I hate this actually. And I think part of that was because I was so like starry-eyed over all of these like alien cultures and all of these new and interesting races, and also this Japanese mythology reference that is basically just lifted wholesale. And I'm like, what is this doing here?
No, they teleported to Earth with Cytonics. It's fine.
Like, they interacted with old Earth. That's why. And I was like, this feels lazy in the midst of a stellar cast of other aliens. What's
Stellar?
happening here?
I mean, as soon as they translated the ship name as the big enough to kill you, I'm like,
I did love
Yes.
them, but I understand that it can feel lazy. Like I get that.
As
They-
someone
I've just
who-
seen it
who-
done so many other times, so many other ways. This was like, it's fine.
As someone who doesn't know Japanese mythology, they were a Japanese mythology reference.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
kitsune are like little fox people in Japanese
okay.
mythology.
Okay.
Not even pronouncing it.
No, sorry, yeah, kitsune. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
but
You know how to do this.
yeah,
Alex.
I do. I definitely like. It had to be one of those things where the characters like won out over my hi. Hello.
What is your opinion on Starsight, Taylor? What did you think of the alien races?
They won out over like my dislike of their inclusion in the book. So.
I guess like that moment, like I get that, but that moment where the characters won was just immediate because Hesha was awesome.
Hesha was awesome, and like I loved.
So likable.
I did like their fake democracy.
I loved the
yes,
fake
that was
democracy. That was hilarious.
Through line.
oh, like there was one line where it's like, yes, it's so hard being from like a democracy and not a shadow dictatorship.
We're totally not doing this to get into superiority, guys.
The bit where they're talking and the lady's like, oh, we all voted against what you recommended, and the superiority is saying that's proof you're still meddling. And he's like, and they're like, what if we just completely voted randomly on everything?
It's just like great call. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
I did like that, which that was the part that felt like original world building for them. Also,
Yeah,
if my
no,
camera
I think
shakes,
that's
it's
fair.
because Dalish is hitting her head against the laptop.
She's so
Hi.
good.
Hi. Alien race right here.
Don't hang up the call.
I
Don't hang up the call.
loved Figments were awesome. Like just
Figments are great.
Figments are weird, but
Was, my favorite race was the Figments.
absolutely
Easy.
so cool. Diones. Oh god, that hurts. That hurts, guys. To say
It's
Diones.
weird. It's like diode, but with an N instead
Yeah.
of a D.
Mhm.
But that makes a big difference to me.
Sure.
But whatever, they were awesome.
I love their right and left genders and the fact
Mhm.
that they also had like all of their whole stuff. And Moriamer was an amazing character. I thought
Yes, I
they were
absolutely
great.
agree. Being able to go through the Delver maze and just like that being the solution was
Mhm.
on point. That was so good.
It was perfect. It was like the perfect setup, and then it's like you get to the reveal. It's like, of course this works.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
that was
Mhm.
that was best.
I did reread some sections, and there's one point where Spencer is talking with Heisho, and like when they were first going in, and she mentions like if this were a real Delver, you would all probably be seeing different things.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is
Yep.
probably a good little foreshadowing of,
Yep.
of Moriamer.
Yep.
I also loved the Kuna's smile reveal.
Yes,
Oh,
I
that
really
was
like that
good
too.
moment.
Expertly done.
That was another very great moment. Kuna was a great character.
I
like-
love them so much.
Yeah, because and there's the scene where Spencer and Moriamer go to like the water garden,
Yes.
Mhm.
and she comments on like, oh yes, this is how Diones like smile. They just like draw their lips into a line, and it's like it should have like clicked.
I can't do it. It's
Kuna
tough.
is smiling, but like that's not a Dione thing.
So they're
What's
just
going
doing
on
it
there?
bad.
Yeah.
And it's also such like a quick way to characterize someone to like a human audience is like, oh, they have a predatory smile. We're like, don't trust.
Yeah,
That's
right.
that's a bad character off the bat. Like we all would have probably made the same assumption that Spencer
Probably.
did
And
and stuck with it.
that was
when
great.
you're reading a human expression in an alien face, you're like, oh, this vibe is bad. Because, of course, Spencer has never tried to read an expression on a non-human face.
There's so much that I liked about Starsight, and like hearing about this, I'm like, yeah, that was really cool. That was really fun.
It's
Before
like
we move on.
Oh, okay.
I didn't like Morima's reveal at the end.
Yeah?
Because
Really?
I know this is a Brandon Sanderson book. Plotting where everything falls into place is what to be expected, and it's what we're reading for. When that reveal came, I was like, oh, so the Dione gimmick basically only exists for this moment. It felt really gimmicky. It felt like Morima's not a character anymore. Morima's just a way of getting past this problem. Like, we have a problem, and this character exists purely just to get around that problem. Because I didn't really... Yeah, it just felt really gimmicky. So I was quite liking Morima, and then that happened, and I was like, oh, they're only here for that. That's why they exist.
This makes me want to talk about the ending, Ben. Should we talk about the ending?
We could. Should
Not
we
yet.
Go into it?
I wanted to say one more thing about the Kuna thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was just I thought this was a great through line. Again, going back to my Starsight predictions about Spencer needing to learn in both books. This is like looking beyond herself and like the reaching out and like to understand other people. This is something that she did in Skyward for her fellow crewmates, that, you know, like not everything is about her own real trauma and like and her reactions to her trauma, but that like other people need different things from her. I think that's like Spencer has been really great for, is that like she has a very outward, strong personality of like, yeah, I'm gonna be the best warrior ever and kill all my enemies. But when you actually look at what she's like, she's constantly reaching out to try and understand other people and reach out to them like in friendship. Like that is like actually her core character trait. And so like as we go through, I think that's actually been the base of her character the entire time. Not the warrior shtick, which we always knew was like an outward projection of like what she thinks strength is, but like when we look at what her actual character is, I think like she's actually the best one to go on this alien mission, and it's exactly for that moment she had with Kuna just sort of solidified that for me, was that she has every reason not to trust this person. Like Kuna comes off as very bad, like she's seeing enemies everywhere, and then like even still she's still trying to reach out and make connections with her new alien flight, with Kuna, with everyone who she has every reason not to trust, and she still tries. I just thought it was a really great through line of her character through both books.
Actually, going back to the Kitsen discussion and how it's like, oh, random Japanese mythology reference. I actually really liked that because it helps show Cytonic FTL is very divorced from technological advancement. Like Cytonic travel between planets has been going on for a very long time. There's at one point where Mortimer and Spencer are having conversation about like how like Dione biology works, and Mortimer talks about how like sexual dimorphism is like super common across the galaxy. It's like, and like we don't know why. Maybe it's like early Cytonic travel like seeded that across many planets. So it's like seeing like Cytonic stuff isn't new. It's always been there. I found fascinating.
It's always been a fabric of like the universe, just from the beginning.
Yeah, I think it did. Initially, when the explanation came up, it felt a little bit hand wavy. Like, here's how we're going to explain why these weird fox gerbils are here. But it was one of those things that, in hindsight, I'm like, okay, that is a little more up to Brandon's snuff. I'll let it slide. I will say, because we talked about the old flight and the new flight possibly coming together, but by the end of this book, most of her new flight is gone.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Hesho is dead. Vapor is still around. Mortimer got born, so is
unavailable.
How's that going to happen? Like, we're not going to see them until book 4?
Definitely not on her side.
No.
So
I think we'll see Kaori, Heisho's shield bearer / navigator, and we'll see Vapor. But Mortimer's going to be a baby for a while.
Maybe book 4? Maybe? I don't know.
They said a few years, so I'm thinking 3 or 4.
We don't know how
the time
how
long it takes them to grow up.
Spencer's in the nowhere and time dilation happened and everyone aged as she was
I
in
do
there.
think there's going to be some kind of time skip, but that's for later.
I wanted to read Grace's paragraphs that she sent me on Starsight because Grace couldn't be here today because she is traveling for Thanksgiving, and so that's fine. And so she sent me her thoughts, and Grace has graced us with her presence so much and was on our previous Starsight Skyward stuff. So I wanted to read her impressions, and she said, overall, I was not a fan of Starsight. I think a lot of my biggest issues with the book have already been covered by the other cast members, particularly Ben's opinions on the first half and characters. Spencer and Mbot were my two least favorite characters in Skyward, so it isn't particularly surprising that I would not like a book focusing on them more. I knew I started Skyward disliking Spencer, and reading Starsight just made it clear to me that a lot of the positive feelings I did develop for her happened only through her interactions with characters I did like. Jorgen, as always, is wonderful. I wasn't a fan of the romance between him and Spencer. We have to talk about that. I prefer the two of them as friends. I didn't necessarily think there was enough build-up to the romance from what we saw at the end of Skyward. Jorgen's interactions with Gran were adorable. Give me more of those. This book really made me dislike Cobb. Dude is just an unrepentant a-hole to people. Also, why is he in charge of the DDF? Ulin forced a laugh, at which Cobb scowled, making Ulin look even more uncomfortable. I empathized with her. Learning how to deal with Cobb was as specialized a skill as performing a triple Alstrom loop with a reverse jump back. You're the boss of everyone here. It shouldn't be so difficult to talk to you that even Spencer can recognize it and feel bad for the one doing it. Unless the job has changed pretty drastically since Ironside's had it, dealing with people is most of your job. I know he gets good results in fighting and probably training as well, but he just sounds terrible for every other aspect of the job. That was a fun diversion there. And then she says she really didn't like Cobb. Ultimately, I'm not very excited for the sequel. While I think Mbot's arc was done well, seeing characters have an existential crisis has never been particularly interesting to me. The potential of humans leaving Detritus and dealing with both the superiority and sympathetic aliens is far more interesting to me than whatever is going on with Spencer and Mbot. Maybe the different groups meeting will retroactively change my reading and opinion of Starsight in the future. It's certainly not impossible, and I hope it does happen because I do want to like this book.
I disagree with every single thing that she said. But it's like it's so different from my read that it's like I can't even like address it. It's like every single thing. I'm like, where do I don't have a response.
It's fine for people
Grace,
to feel differently, right? It's fine
You're
for people to feel
Grace,
differently.
I just don't get it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's fine.
I
do
will
know.
agree.
Go ahead.
Sorry, that the development of the Spencer Jorgen relationship did seem to have progressed further than I was expecting, but it has been 6 months, so I would have expected something to happen. I do like them together, so it's like I don't dislike that it happened this way, but I was like, okay, like we probably needed a little bit more to show us getting to this point.
I don't think I agree with that.
I know Jess.
I think this was perfect.
Jess loved it. Jess loved the Spencer Jorgen.
I also
romance.
liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was.
I feel it's strange to me that everyone seems to think or everyone keeps saying that they don't like how far it progressed, because I'm like, it didn't really progress. Like Spencer had kind of accepted that she had feelings for Jorgen, but further than that, like that would have been nice to see on screen at some point, sure. But like they haven't like said anything to each other, and then she gives him a little kiss goodbye, and like, that to me isn't.
I
think that's fine.
Well, I was like.
I totally agree. Like, I think they did the emotional work in Skyward, where like what I like about it is that it is based in a real friendship of like this isn't two people who are like automatically attracted to each other and just and all their tension is because they're attracted to each other. This is two people who started out really disliking each other for legitimate, valid reasons, and they were both huge jerks to each other. I had to really think about that word I wanted to use. What
we
words
can
can we
bleep
say?
things. We can bleep things. That's fine.
They both were not good to each other. But they both grew, and I think that by the time like they hugged in Skyward, I agree it shouldn't have happened then, but like that was the emotional work of like them growing towards friendship. Sorry, the cat. She's so cute.
This is what it's like to live in my house.
So like, and then the beginning of Starsight, it was sort of like they just needed that one moment of like recognizing that they still do trust each other, because that was like sorry, I'll let you fix your mic.
So sorry. Like trying not to draw attention to it. Continue, please.
Yeah. Where was I?
They did the emotional weight.
But the beginning of Starsight, I feel like they really had the right moment. They've had 6 months of something is going on between them, but like they both have a very professional relationship. They already have done the work of like becoming friends. Mm-hmm. But now they are trying to figure out their way through the next step, which is what they are right now is fine for friendship. But like that moment of when Spencer realizes that like he trusts her, and that she and then she also does him the respect and trust of asking him for his opinion first. I feel like that was like the perfect moment.
That
like,
was a nice
the kiss is fine. The kiss is just like the outward expression of like the emotional moment that just happened. But like the real connection, I thought like was like that two. The two of them reaching out in trust towards each other before she makes this huge decision that like could mean like she might never come back.
She might die. Gotta kiss
she
him.
might die.
She might die.
Yeah. I thought that was like a really perfect start, and it was sort of like they didn't declare their love for each other. They weren't falling over each other, making promises or commitments. It was just a kiss, and it was just like a bunch of like I said before. I think the foundation for this moment was already there in Skyward. And then it was just like that final push of like, we see enough in the first couple chapters of like the tension between Spencer and Jorgen, not sure if they can trust each other in terms of like their how do I phrase this? Like going off and doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. I thought the work was there. And I thought this was really, really actually very mature of them. A great start to a future relationship.
I know I also really love their relationship, mostly because it doesn't feel very forced to me. I think they are, a lot of the things you said about them being healthy, I think they're one of the healthiest expressions of opposites attract. Because I think there's a lot of romances, especially in YA, that's like, oh my gosh, you drive me crazy, but I just can't stop thinking about you. And like,
yeah, that's true.
That's not them. They're very much... They are in a way where they realize how different they are and have started to respect that, in that Spencer looks to temper her impulsiveness with Jorgen's advice. And he looks to, try to push himself beyond some of his more rigid thinking by thinking, okay, you know what? Spencer would go for this. And I really like that. It's also very funny because Shannon and I were talking about this, and she is very Spencer, and I am very Jorgen. Jorgen, however you say it.
Yeah.
His call sign was going to be Jaeger. Don't comment here. It's like it's
all
Jorgen.
Good.
Like
we accept both Jorgen. We accept both.
The US and UK audiobooks say it differently, so either
pick whatever you like.
Pick whichever
UK
you like.
audiobook says it correctly.
Ben here throwing gas on the fire.
Yeah.
I haven't actually thought about how I say it, so it just comes out differently.
Just keep on going.
However I feel.
I relate very strongly to Spencer. She relates very strongly to Jorgen. Different outward expression, but same values, and I think that's what makes it a real. Yeah.
Here's the thing that I have an issue with. Book 3, I guess we're just not going to see those characters interact again. Because Spencer's going to be in the nowhere and maybe not interacting with either sets of the characters that we've gotten to learn over 2 books. And like, I just really don't want that to be the case. I will be actually upset if like we do all this emotional weight, and like then she's in like Delver flight school in the nowhere, training with Delvers because Delvers are late now, and like
you really go very far in terms of your expectations. Like, where are you getting these ideas?
Like, I just don't want it to be like, flight school again. But now we're in the nowhere. Wow, it's different. Crazy.
Delver Flight School is my favorite joke has come from.
Yeah, no, I know.
You've already come up with a whole world. This is amazing.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the detritus folks and Spence's like Vapor, Kuna, Cowrie join
the human sympathizers.
The human sympathizers and detritus joining forces, and that being the interludes.
Ooh, interludes. Interesting.
I just want a lot more of it than that. Like, that's
I
the thing.
have a feeling that Spencer is not going to be in the nowhere for very long.
Yeah,
I hope not. But but Brandon's book title for it was going to be Nowhere, and he's just trying to decide whether his publisher will let him. And like Starsight was about Starsight, so I can only assume that if he titles the book Nowhere, that she's in the nowhere the entire time. And I would just like, I would actually like to see progression in Spencer and Jorgen's relationship, and for that to happen on screen. And I'm just worried that we're going to get another book where they're not interacting like the whole time. And that really disappoints me. I'm pretty upset by that. Just that idea.
You're disappointed about something that hasn't happened. Just to be clear.
Because
about where we
Spencer's
are.
going somewhere completely different, and this series is about the adventures of Spencer and Mbot, and it doesn't matter which characters you get attached to, because they're just going to be gone in the next book, and it doesn't matter. You'll see 3 chapters from them, and nothing will matter.
Wow.
Like, that's Jorgen's side quest was a complete waste of time in this book and had nothing to do with the ending at all. And
but it's not a waste of time for the series.
Yeah, it just doesn't make me like this ending more. And
you don't have to like the ending more.
I don't.
It's totally aside to the ending.
Yeah, but like I expect Brandon endings to actually connect rather than just like, oh, we're having a side quest. Jorgen, instead of being in the cool space battle, is finding slugs. Wow. I'm just so thrilled. Like,
I was thrilled. I'm just, this is great. This changes the entire field of like what's about to happen next. The superiority is not coming from a place of strength.
Mm-hmm.
Ian?
I agree. It was a nice, Jorgen finding the slugs helped make Spencer going to nowhere more palatable to me.
Yeah.
Because it means like, okay, detritus isn't stuck on detritus without Spencer. Like,
it's like
will be able to get off. They will.
Spencer doesn't need to come save the day anymore. It's sort of like that was kind of always the hope, was that she wasn't going to be the only one who could do this. It was always the hope that she would be able to join, or they would be able to join her, which I love. It's sort of, and I also think this is going to be, this is why I think there might be at least a slight time skip when we get to the third one, is that I think we're going to see the humans starting from their place of strengths that they've already gotten. They've already have copies of Mbot's plans and et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And plus now they have hyperdrives. So I think we're going to start from a place where the humans actually have a significant equalizing factor, is that the superiority is not just going to be able to wipe them out. I think we might come into a place where we've seen a battle between the superiority being split between the human sympathizers and the humans versus the Wenzix people, like coming into already having been in conflict for a bit.
And all of that sounds great. I just don't care about the nowhere. So that's the thing. All that sounds awesome.
My prediction is I would be very surprised if Spencer does not get out of the nowhere by like the end of part 1. But I have a feeling like even if she spends a lot of time there, I think we're going to have like time skips where we're not narratively reading chapters about it necessarily.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling like the nowhere is going to become important. Like we're maybe going to be moving people through the nowhere in the book. We're going to have something in there that like we need to send a team to secure this thing that's in the nowhere.
Sure.
I don't think it's just going to be Spensa alone in the nowhere for the
in a
majority
really
of the
boring
book.
place, walking through nothingness while everything. No, I mean,
I hope so.
If the plot takes place in the nowhere, it's going to be relevant and interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's going to be a nice Delver
We'll
place.
find out. We'll find
That's
out.
where everyone's like. This is where people travel through. This is where people send communications through. Like, even if she is kind of like stuck in there, like she's going to figure out how to talk to people. Like that already started happening with Gran. She wasn't actually locked out of communication even in Starsight, where she didn't have her cytonic abilities developed. It was already starting to happen.
I just really liked 95% of Starsight until the ending made me just not care anymore. Like, that's the thing. I don't know if I care that much about the sequel. I want Brandon to prove me wrong, but I don't know if I care. And like, that's the thing. Yeah.
I do have one more thing, because it's
Before we-
something we have not touched on at all,
Uh-huh.
which is Alanique.
Yes.
Yeah,
That has to be
Yes.
important for sure. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yes, she is on detritus. At no point did she wake up, which I kept thinking was going to happen
Yeah.
in the interludes.
Mhm.
Like, her people had like strong connections with the humans.
Mm-hmm. That better be relevant.
Communicated with Spensa throughout the book.
I want that to be relevant.
My first thoughts, by the way, when the ship came and crash landed, and it was like, oh, it's a very similar to a human ship. I was like, oh man, there's going to be a boy in there. We're going to start a love triangle, aren't we?
Oh, no.
I'm so
this is
glad
totally
that
going to
that
happen.
did not happen.
not even at all. Not even a little.
Not
bit.
I was
even
like,
a
thank
bit.
God.
I
was
know,
like, oh my
me
God.
too.
Zane is in that ship, isn't he? He's going to be in it. Coming down.
No, we already have him on detritus. His name was Zine Nightshade.
Oh, yeah,
Oh gosh, you're right.
Yeah, see, all of that stuff sounds cool. But I don't know. I want to be excited about the nowhere. There, as far as we know, the nowhere have weird symbols, and we harvest rocks there, and the Delvers are from there. That's about
I
it.
love that. That's exciting. That's like there's something that means if we know so little, that means that it's going to be revealed later. There's still
Imbot was thinking faster when the portal opened.
That's true,
I
that
think
is
we're going
true.
to find out things about Imbot in the nowhere.
And we do need to hear
Yeah.
about things about AI, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the Delvers, guys?
Shall we? Shall we?
I think
Can
I
we
should
delve into that?
Strap
Yeah.
in. Brace
Yeah.
yourself
I would
for
actually,
assault.
I have a positive opinion about what happened. I would like to go last because I think I want to let Eric explain.
Oh, this is
first.
gonna be a rant bigger than the Zane rant on Cosmere beefs. I think.
I'll just get ready. I'll sit here.
Delvers
I
play a
do
lot
think
into
I might have a counter to your thing.
I'm so ready
Oh,
to.
I'll me and
Well,
Ian.
we've all got a lot to say.
I
We've all
want to
got a
be
lot say.
excited about this series again. But so, okay. Here's where we left off in Skyward, where there's evil, malevolent, ancient eyes that are peering hatefully at Spensa when she does cytonic things. This is immediately the coolest world-building element to me. Like, it is awesome. And I couldn't believe in chapter 4, we just hear about detritus getting, like instantly destroyed by the Delver. Like, that was amazing. And I was like, this is what this book's gonna be about. And like, yeah, this is what this book is about. Yeah. And we go into the Delver maze and it's awesome. And I'm like, oh, so we want to do Death Star trench runs. Okay, great, cool. In space. That's fine. Awesome. And I guess that Delver, the Delver maze is actually a dead Delver. So humans, I guess,
totally a
killed
dead
Delver.
Delver.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Yeah, totally did that.
So
Yeah.
that's all great and all. And we hear Vapor talk like, if you solve the Delver problem, you basically control the galaxy. I'm like, great, awesome. This is the big conflict for the series. But then we go to the end and Braid summons the Delver at the end of detritus. And I will say it was very clever. Spensa, using the knowledge that she got in the book, is saying, hey, DDF, you gotta shut everything down. You gotta do that. And so I realized that we couldn't get, the flights intermingling because otherwise the Delver would have just found the radio communications and probably just killed them all. So that makes sense. I'm with that. Spensa sends the Delver to Starsight. and because Winzik's communicating cytonically with them, that makes sense. That's all great. My issue with the Delver is that it was easy. It was easy. Like, the Delver, there's times where there's like just people who's like, Delver's destroyed my homeworld. And it's like, no, Starsight? We're good. Nah, it's like there was it eliminated all of detritus almost instantaneously, even with the giant shielding. But Starsight has a shield on it, so it's fine. It's like, oh, okay, sure. Like literally, Delvers just go through planets and just like vaporize them and defeat them like instantaneously. But no, the Delvers are actually complete punks and can't break out a space station. It's like, wow, we gotta have enough time to get our group of fighters into the Delver, and it just felt so easy to defeat these giant eldritch monsters, and that was the part that was really disappointing. We go through and we get to see Mortimer get through the illusions. That's great. And I'm just getting more deflated. It's like, oh, all the embers that just like didn't matter, because like we didn't really interact with them very much. And we're at the center of the Delver maze. That took like 3 pages. It was slightly more, but it was short. It didn't take a long time, let's just say. And then we go into the White Room. And then that's when I got furious. Or not furious. I'm furious now. But like when I read it, I was like, that's it? That's it? Oh, the Delvers didn't realize that these were people too. And then the Delver left. That's it. That's it. No, the ancient beings that have been there for forever just never noticed that their wanton destruction ever, like they just never realized this problem. And it's like, oh, you're people too? I'm out of here. And thus, Delvers who have existed for centuries, who, like, when they're usually summoned into the realm, they wreak havoc for centuries. It's like, no, the Delver is gone and is back in the nowhere. And Dispensa, like, it just doesn't matter. Now the Delvers, instead of being cool, are just the lamest thing ever. Because it's just like, oh, they're just dumb. They just didn't realize what was happening. This is like Vin ascends to preservation. Mistborn spoilers. And goes up to Ruin and be like, hey, all these people that you're killing are people too. Maybe you should like realize that. And Ruin's like, you're right, I'm out of here. And then the book just ends. That's what it felt like. It's crap. I hated it. It made the entire Eldritch horrors of horrible monsters be a joke. They're a joke. They're like, I'm not excited to hear about Delvers. And that's why I have the joke about Delver Flight School, where where Spencer's gonna meet up with Delvers and we're gonna be Delver's best friends and just gotta make them realize that they're people too. And the Eldritch monsters, whatever, doesn't matter. The coolest element is just not here. And it's like we just had to wrap up the Delver stuff. I guess they'll be important later, but I just don't care about them because they're just lame now. And because it was just easy to get inside the Delver and into the heart. It was just trivial, basically. And we had to pull Game of Thrones, where we had to just like murder the White King, and then the politics was the enemy the whole time, and that's the big bad. And so we just had to kill all the evil supervillains. And then it was really about the enemies we made along the way. That's the real problem. And the thing, and just how disappointing that I loved that everything was so awesome. The Delver came in and I was like, wow, crap is gonna get real. It's so cool. But then it was easy. A few casualties on Starsight. Whatever. Delvers, no big thing. It's fine. We don't need to deal with Spence's emotional ramification for sending a monster to kill millions of people, because they're fine. They're fine. We won't hear about that. The ending felt convenient, and that I think goes with what you were saying, Ben. That's like, oh, Mortimer, we get through the Delver maze. It's convenient. I liked that part, but it adds to what I felt that The ending was just convenient. Braid just thankfully lived because she was pushed out of the way. Spencer survived just fine. Sent down into deep space, but was just fine. Everything's just fine. And then we need a giant cliffhanger to get us excited for the next book. That's an entire fake out ending. Disappointing. And
One thing,
I have a lot to say, but I'm going to let someone else go first. I just want to say about the convenience thing. I think it would have been a lot more convenient if the Delver had just wiped out Starsight, because that goes the entire like thematic thing of like humans having to convince and persuade. If the Delver just wiped out Starsight, it would have just been like, oh, well, now it's like a reconquering thing again.
I agree with that.
There goes all of like the actual gritty like humans having to try, and now it's just like, well, the Delvers are wiping out everything, and then the story would be really different. I feel like everything that happened up until then would have been completely wasted in terms of everything we saw up until the Delver would have just been out the window.
I see what you're saying, and I probably would have felt that way too, that it was a entire waste of time being on Starsight. So that's a good point. But it's just kind of a disrespect to all the civilizations that the Delvers destroyed, that this Delver was a punk and was just nothing.
I'm going to let Ian go, but I also...
Yeah, I think
Ian go first. You have your finger.
Yeah. So, first of all, you can survive a surprisingly long amount of time in deep space. Just saying. It's not instant death.
No, I know it's not instant death. It's just... plot convenience. Of course,
she was also
lived.
unconscious for 3 days, so there were ramifications of that. 2,
we'll talk about that too.
Shield of Starsight was definitely destroyed.
Yeah, they say that at the end, but like,
but you were talking about how like it was stopped by Starsight.
The Embers destroyed the shield eventually, but like it was just enough time for us to do our run through the Delver. Like that's convenient too.
And I liked that it was politics that were the enemy the entire time. I think that is the natural progression of what we saw in Skyward. It's like, if the enemy had been like this eldritch evil, I feel like that would have been...
It removes a nuance.
Yes.
It's just a very simple story of, okay, who cares about politics? Who cares about people? Who cares about all like the character work? It's just like, okay, there's a big giant enemy. Let's go kill it.
Well, then maybe Brandon shouldn't have put in a giant eldritch enemy to do that the entire time if you wanted to make a story about politicking.
I disagree that it is inherently an enemy. It's like, it's an eldritch creature, like far beyond like our level of life. Like, it does not understand us. It's more like a natural disaster. Like it just sweeps in and it kills things. Because it's trying to like kill us. It's just trying to get rid of something like it finds annoying. Like it's like,
I relate it to a plant. It reacts to stimulus. It doesn't understand, like, it doesn't actually comprehend emotions or people or something. It just sort of like, it had like this vague sense of like, it's just reacting.
To a certain extent, yes, but it's like, there's often the comparison to like it seeing like life as like insects, and like, do you really give a second thought to like, oh, there's like a whole bunch of ants like on my food, I'm just going to stomp on them and kill them.
I get that.
But like, if somehow an ant were to show you that like, hey, no, these ants are actually a sapient civilization, would you not be horrified? Like, oh, I was just like killing a whole bunch of sapient beings.
I've killed so many insects. Oh my God.
I will say, in terms of the Delvers being too easy, I think Spencer got very lucky.
Yes.
With the Delver she got. Because I know a lot of human people who, if a bunch of ants managed to communicate that they were sentient, would be like, you know what? I don't care. You're annoying and I'm going to wipe you out anyway. I think Spencer managed to get a Delver that would respond to that, but I have a feeling we're going to see Delvers that don't care if people are people. Like, your buzzing is awful. It's driving me crazy, and I'm going to shut you up. You're tiny and insignificant. Why should I care about if you have feelings?
I think it's also significant that it's not just annoying, it's painful.
Yeah.
And I would like to see why the existence of consciousness is annoying and painful to the Delvers. Like, what is it about their connection to the fabric of the universe that makes other people aggravating? Like, what is it? Like, if their whole thing is like peace and quiet, I don't even think that Delvers are a people. I think they probably arrange it so that they don't even like talk to other Delvers. They love their peace and quiet so much.
Yeah.
They just want the quiet. I don't like, have we ever seen two Delvers in like the same physical space?
No.
I don't think anyone ever mentioned that. They're talking about a Delver went on a rampage.
Yeah.
Well, there is mention that at one point there were like 13 Delvers active.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But we don't know how
far
that
apart.
might have just been across the galaxy.
Yeah, it seemed like across the galaxy.
How far apart they were, I feel like there was probably significant physical space.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just, like, if you're setting something up to be the big bad, I'm disappointed when the big bad is just a big misunderstanding, guys.
Well, I disagree that it was being set up as the big bad.
Like, that was something that like not everyone read as like, or anticipated as being like, this is going to be first, like it, like maybe some people wouldn't even expect this to be an Eldritch horror, because like not everyone like read that as sort of like, oh, these are definitely going to be the final boss. Like, no, like maybe it's something totally different, which is like, I don't know.
I mean, I guess.
You had a lot of expectations that were completely destroyed.
Yeah, they were.
And some people had very different expectations. For what the Delvers were going to be. I think
they were described as ancient and hateful. What the hell am I supposed to read into that? It was pretty cut and dry. Lots of people had lots of
different takes on like what that was going to mean. Like, a book that I really liked that it's sort of I don't know if you guys have read Semiosis.
No.
Right. No. Okay. It is one of my favorite like alien books, because I have this thing where I'll talk more about this, but where the moment of the unknowable becoming the known is always a disappointment.
Yes, true.
Because
Indeed.
like I think like part of it is also that this has happened at the end of book 2 when we know that there's going to be 2 more books coming.
Yep.
So it's sort of like if the unknowable has just become the known halfway through, what do we even do with the rest of that? Like, I understand like the feeling of like the stakes being lowered. I think there's still, I still really think there's a lot to be explored. I think there's a lot of mysteries of things we still don't understand and know. But I understand the feeling of like there is no more tension because of the unknowable.
Yeah, because we know that.
Which I totally get. Understanding releases the tension. There is less fear and dread when you understand. Which is like I totally get that. I think the way to keep that interesting is related to keeping it alien, which is something I really liked about Semiosis, which is about an alien plant. And like the idea that if you can properly convey that you can understand someone but still have completely different thinking, which is why I was really intrigued by the Delvers' main thing that was like so creepy is like the reflection. The reflection of Spensa, but still not understanding. It's not reflecting Spensa because it understands her. It's reflecting her because it doesn't understand her. And just like that idea of that you can see someone but still not be able to connect, which I think is like still a really interesting way to keep some more narrative tension after they become known. This thing does not understand actually what people are. It doesn't understand emotions. It still finds people painful to experience. So I really liked that. If you're going to make an Eldritch horror known halfway through a series, then that means there has to be more. That means it had to be this way in order to make the exploration of that difference, to give it that time.
I have a question,
yes.
Shannon.
Yes,
You didn't
sorry.
think the Delvers were going to be the big bad reading this book?
No, I mean, I thought they were going to be part of it. But like, it was definitely, we got 95% of space politics.
Yeah, but like the entire reason the universe is set up the way it is because of fear of the Delvers.
I also have not seen
enemy.
the Delvers as the big bad.
I
didn't
agree.
get that vibe.
I don't
I
understand.
Listen, I didn't think they were going to be a big bad. I think they were going to be a very big part that was going to be explored. So I never thought of them as final boss. I thought of it like, just like anything, like in the Cosmere, it's sort of like, this is a mystery that we're going to uncover. This is like the Delver and the Nowhere. Like, this is like the deep lore. So I'm excited to know more about what's going to happen there. I don't think of it as like a final boss that's going to be defeated. I'm excited for the knowledge that we're going to get and find out what they are and what we can do about them. Like, can we actually talk to them? Are the Delvers a people? Like, there's so much to explore. Like, I think of it as more like a place that we're going to learn more about, an area of interest that we're going to explore, but not necessarily the final evil bad guy that we need to like use all our ships to blow up in like a Death Star run. Like, I love Star Wars, but it's also, that is very like a very reductive thing for what I think Brennan has been doing with these books, with like this point of view of Spencer, which is what I was saying before, being the person who's always reaching out and understanding in the midst of like this political turmoil. It's sort of like that would kind of really go against the work. So like, yeah, I thought they were very scary. I thought they were dread. I think they're very alien and eldritch still. But I never thought of them as like being the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think to me, the Delvers are, hi again. You were trouble last time. You got to behave. I saw the Delvers as an obstacle more than like an evil. Or it's similar to, admittedly, I've not read Shadows for Silence in a while, but it reminded me of the danger of the shades.
Ooh.
Of if you go out into the forest, if you go out into like their territory, there's rules you have to follow, and there are going to be consequences if you don't follow them. In terms of like, you know, if you are traveling in the nowhere, if you're making a lot of noise, you're going to attract attention, and there's going to be consequences for that. Not necessarily that they're like this evil threat that's going to come for you. It's just like, this is their territory. And if you're intruding, you're putting yourself at risk. You need to find ways to minimize the risk that you have when you are interacting with those things.
Yeah.
I think that ties in perfectly with what Ian was saying about them being a natural disaster. They're just a natural consequence. They're not an animal. They're not like a person. They're just a natural consequence of using cytonics. And I think like getting that set up so that we can actually explore that over the course of 2 books instead of it being like the climax of the end of a series is kind of more interesting. I like that being explored rather than that being the final.
So a couple of things. I'm going to reply to a few things here before I go into my Delver things.
Reaction.
Philosophy of Delvers.
First, when we were doing our Starsight predictions podcast, we literally said that we thought that the end of the Skyward universe would be Spencer flying around in a ship shooting aliens whilst also having to negotiate with the eyes cytonically and like having to solve all these problems. And I was like, that's basically how this book kind of ended. There was the spaceshipy, a bit cytonic, and what I see is them being set up as the big bad, because I completely agree that these were definitely being set up as the big bad, because all of the problems in the universe could almost be traced back to the fact that Delvers exist and cause these issues with using cytonics. The way that they control, the way that the supremacy controls the galaxy is by using FTL stuff. Is by limiting the safe FTL, because dangerous FTL attracts the Delvers. So if you solve the Delver problem, you solve the supremacy problem. Sorry, the superiority problem.
Yep.
Because,
all good. We all make that mistake.
Yeah. So I absolutely did think that they were going to be the big bad, because if solving this one Delver's problem, if you solve this one Delver, and he then goes back to the nowhere, or it goes back to the nowhere and tells all the other Delvers, hey, let's not kill everyone. The superiority has now lost its stranglehold on the universe.
The entire world building is destroyed.
Yeah, your world building is destroyed. It's like, because now people can just go back to cytonically jumping from planet to planet whenever they want, and
I
it's
like
no
that.
biggie.
I like that a lot because. Oh, sorry, Ian.
Yeah, counterpoint. If you suddenly realize that ants are people too, and you went to your neighbor next door and said, like, hey, ants are people too, would your neighbor believe you?
My impression from the end of this book is that the Delvers are no longer a problem. That's how I saw this ending.
Ooh, I very heavily
disagree.
I disagree
Okay.
too.
I think that might be a difference.
The big difference
solution.
for how we read what our immediate flash of expectations for what was going to happen next is probably extremely different. Is the big thing.
I'm expecting them to not really be a problem anymore.
Yeah, I like the idea of the cytonic restrictions suddenly disappearing because that's very interesting to me. I like the status quo being upset. That's one of my favorite things about an author like Brandon, is that my expectations often get met, but he meets them extremely fast. So all of a sudden, where I thought the series was going to end becomes the next book. And this isn't just Skyward. This is like across a lot of his books.
Sure.
He moves things very fast. And so what I thought was going to be the big story isn't actually. But my expectations were still met about where I thought it was going to go, what I thought was going to happen. So like I find that extremely exciting. I like seeing the exploration of what happens when the status quo is undone, because I always like that about epilogues, is that sometimes at the end of like other fantasy series or other sci-fi series, something big happens. We know the status quo is going to be different, and then the series ends, and you have to actually see how that plays out in reality. So I find it much more interesting to have the status quo interrupted sooner, because I think it's like a little bit more realistic that we get to see the ups and downs of such a thing happening. And I think that's just why I like Brandon's work in general. But that's just a reading difference.
I think one thing for me is, I don't know that the Delvers communicate with each other.
That's
because
true. We
they
don't
like communication. I kind of have a feeling they are probably very solitary.
I never read them as being the big bad, even though they were described as like these hateful eyes, because I was just wondering, like, okay, but why are they so hateful? Like, it can't be just as simple as like they hate all life, like they are this evil thing.
Yeah,
there has to be more to it because this is Brandon.
Yeah,
like it so it's like this isn't the big thing that needs to be overcome. It's like it's another mystery that needs to be solved.
Exactly, because it's sort of like we know that humans used to have a history of going through it, like long enough that they had 3 wars against the universe. It feels like something changed, like between over the course of their known history in the universe.
I get what you're saying, but I just can't be excited about this because go ahead, Ben.
You guys saying that you didn't see the Delvers as the big bad makes me think like we before the podcast we talked a bit about Mass Effect.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Could you imagine if the Reapers had been defeated at the end of Mass Effect 1 and then Mass Effect 2 was just about galactic politics?
From BioWare, I wouldn't have been very excited. It's not very good.
You're right, Ben. That sounds terrible.
BioWare writing? Come on.
That sounds terrible.
If it was a writer I trusted, I would have loved it.
Okay.
But it depends, because I wasn't a huge fan of the Reapers. I thought they were really disappointing. Because they were
disappointing in the end, yes.
No, the whole thing. It was like I was disappointed at the end of Mass Effect 1.
See, I totally disagree.
I thought they were extremely boring. I was like, their reasons were extremely boring. I was like, let's wipe out organic life, and then because we don't like organic life and we think it's just sort of like that was like a moment of the unknowable becoming the known that was really frustrating and annoying. And it was just sort of like, okay, so you're basically just there to. It was like, for me, like that was like a convenient narrative obstacle, because like they're just there to kill people, and it was actually just kind of boring because it reduces everything to now how can we beat the Reapers, and like everything else was sort of flattened, narrowed down. It was not an interesting enemy, and it was just I thought they were, and like the reason I don't like it is because it's sort of like I don't like the idea that even when known that you can't reason with them. It's sort of like have you ever had a conversation with a person and you're arguing, you're fighting, and they are like refusing to hear your arguments even though you think they're very good, which I think we've all had this experience.
Oh, right now?
Sort of like,
No.
Yeah, I call that Shardcast.
Shardcast. No, but like, you've had discussions with people who are and it's sort of like you can feel the moment of like them not even listening to you anymore, and it's like that is not interesting to me, because it's sort of like it's just like, oh, like Reapers, like people, it's just like they've just shut their minds off, and it's like the refusal that like they are known, and so the more the fear is gone now that we understand the reasoning, and it kind of is lame. And then we get to the point of like, and they can't be reasoned with because they just can't be reasoned with. It's a tautology. And it was just, I found it was not very interesting. The interesting parts of Mass Effect to me were not the Reapers. It was everything else. It was the politics. It was like trying to get everyone together and involved. And the wrangling of the people and trying to get everyone on the same page, pointing in the right direction. That was the interesting part. The Reapers weren't the interesting part. They were a narrative device. And that's like in total, that's on one end of the scale.
I am not a Mass Effect fan, so I understood very little of that.
I played the first half of Andromeda, which is
there's no Reapers
so
there,
I'm also out of this one.
Ben, what?
So that's why Alyx and I are not really talking.
Ben, what?
So I love the Reapers. The Reapers were to me until the end of Mass Effect 3 and the Leviathan DLC. Until those, the Reapers were my favorite interpretation of a sci-fi Lovecraftian horror. The conversation with Sovereign at the end of Mass Effect.
Yes!
I basically know it off by heart because I
can still watch that and get chills. It's so good.
Sophie.
Perhaps we could have a short explanation of what the Reapers are.
Okay, so
the Reapers are like massive, like planet. Almost, some of them are planet-sized, but like basically very massive. They're actually smaller than Delvers.
They're only the capital ships are only 2 kilometers long.
So like, but they can destroy planets, and they are basic
for this chat.
2 kilometers. I'm with you, Ben.
Canadian understands this.
The Commonwealth
is in American Mass Effect. Do they like change it to miles?
No, they don't.
Probably not. No, Americans are just like,
sorry, American Mass Effect.
What that means.
Yeah, because it's a Canadian company. Anyway,
basically the plot is that there's a cycle of destruction that the Reapers come every like 50,000 years to wipe out all organic life. That's what they do.
And they are massive ships. They are unbelievably huge, and every 50,000 years, their numbers, they darken the skies of every world, and they come
of every technologically advanced enough, significantly technology. They will leave planets alone with life that don't have a certain level of technology.
Yes,
and
come the end of Mass Effect 1, you have a conversation with one. He's just completely dismissive of you. He is just like,
awesome.
He's like, you will end because I demand it, and there's nothing you can do. And that's you just don't know. And then come end of Mass Effect 2, you find out that they actually harvest these life forms for like some like reproduction to build more Reapers. And you're kind of like, okay, is this why they're doing it? But then there's lots of things involved. Maybe I'm getting a bit too into Mass Effect.
Basically, the end of Mass Effect 3, most people were disappointed about why the Reapers were actually created, why these ultra, basically invincible sentient machines were built originally. And I actually didn't have an issue with it, but I know you did, Ben. I know you hated that. But I was with you. With at the end of the first one, you're like, you get a glimpse into them, and you're like, wow, we're completely screwed. We're just completely screwed.
But that's what I'm saying is that like the moment of knowing is such a disappointment. Like when you understand what they really are, there's only so many ways you can write something that's actually really interesting, because like you can't if it's an eldritch horror of unknowableness, you can't answer the question
absolutely
and still have it be scary. It's always going to be a disappointment.
It's why my preference is to not have them be explained, because I'm a big fan of Lovecraftian horror. I've read a lot of Lovecraft. I read a lot of modern Lovecraftian style horror. I like unknowable horrors that come in and either you win or you lose for reasons unknown. I like that. I don't have to have those things explained.
I agree with that. You don't have to have them explained. I just think that it's a different story and it's a little bit boring to me. That's all.
Yeah.
That's fine. I love stories like that. The Reapers are like captured my imagination fantastically. Like seeing the Voidbringers in Stormlight, I'm like, what's up with that? That's crazy. I want to know about that. And I can tell that is not a kind of thing that you particularly like, Shannon, by your facial expression.
I liked all the rest of Mass Effect. I liked going to the planets and learning about the people.
I like that too.
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
the core, I'm a
sure,
core plot person. The core plot was about the Reapers, and that was the thing that I was truly invested in. And like,
no, the core plot was about getting the people together to fight the Reapers. That was what the gameplay was about. That was 95% of the writing and game mechanics and story.
But it was all about the Reapers. Because it's about fighting
in the same way that it was about the Delvers.
Right, exactly. That's why
it.
I'm disappointed about the Delvers. Exactly.
And the Reapers was a disappointment. And so...
Well, I think the Reapers were disappointed at the end of the third one when they were explained. Like, you just saw
the moment
Reaper
of explaining.
Right,
yeah, the moment of explaining.
Right. But, like, I'm sorry. I just don't get that, like, oh, these civilization things, they're not the real enemy. Like, I don't know, like... Wasn't that like the central thing? Like, don't have giant apocalypse things if you don't want it to be about the apocalypse, I guess. I don't know. Like,
I very much disagree with
Brandon
that.
is able to write apocalypse stories and still have Ruin and Odium still be... You know things about them, but they are still, like, menacing and, like, and things. And, like, I love shards. You know I love shards a lot. And I was ready to love the Delvers a lot. But then we get into the White Room and the Delvers are dumb.
Yeah, but the Delvers and the Shards are very different.
I know they're very different.
Like, in, like, fundamental ways. It's like the Shards know what's going on. Like, they were human once, or dragons once, or Shodel once.
They're I feel like they're a different type of narrative threat.
Yeah, they're not eldritch horrors.
They're not unknowable, and we're never like designed to be.
But they fill that same role, though.
Human, but they exemplify aspects of ourselves rather than.
I never thought the shards were unknowable. It's like they were always people. They always had like understandable motivations. Like, I've never felt they were like I was not able to understand why they were doing something. It was just sort of like, and that's why I'd like the shards never felt like that big to me. It's sort of like the shards are interesting, but I never got the sense like, oh, they're actually like God. Like, I'm just like, no, they're like they're forming an aspect of a greater deal of power, and they have very human motivations and thoughts, and that's kind of like what they are. Very different.
This is the thing that gets me most excited about basically every story. And like the Reapers captures my imagination, the Shards capture the imagination, the Eyes and the Delvers captured my imagination the most. And I don't know, I just read Starsight and it just turns out the Delvers are lame. Like
I have another comparison. It'd be like if in book 2 of Stormlight they just dealt with Ruin, and then the rest of the books were about like the Alethi. Dealt with Odium.
Yes, exactly.
The rest of the books were about like the Alethi High Prince politics. I'm like,
isn't that what people think is going to happen at the end of book 5, and then have like the whole other half of the series be about something different? Isn't that like one of the main theories about what's going to happen with Stormlight?
Well, yeah,
we're halfway through Skyward, and this is like the halfway point. Like,
that is a point.
But I would be disappointed with that, and I will complain about that if that's the case. If we just
by all means.
So, I think part of the issue is that we are only at book 2 of a 4-book series. We don't know how the overarching plot works that is in Brandon's mind.
Yeah.
So we are trying to piece together a language with half of an alphabet. Like, it's just not going to work necessarily. So, like, you are picking up on things that, like, there's probably, like, an explanation in book 3 or book 4 that will make it work. but you're just not.
We're just not going to see
We're
a
just
Delver
not.
being summoned and feel fear anymore. Like, that's the problem.
And probably early on in book 3, we'll see a Delver get summoned, and there isn't anybody like Spencer that can go into it. Or like they'll try. It's like, oh, we found out how to fix this Delver problem, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, I don't think it's solved in any
Yeah.
way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. I think we got really lucky with one specific Delver.
It just
I
makes
think
me-
I got very lucky with both Mortimer and Spencer being the ones to do the thing.
Mhm.
I do have a suspicion that Braid is going to learn, and that Spencer's advantage is going, as the only one who has done it, will be taken away. But that's just a thought.
And also, like, going off of Spencer got lucky, it's like this particular Delver already had a connection with her. Like, it was like
Mhm.
when she
Watching her.
yeah, it was watching her, like, because like when she jumps to Starsight that last time, she's like, the eyes that noticed me earlier aren't there because that's the one that came out.
It's been noted. It's been watching her the whole book.
Ah.
Why Spencer? She's just a strong
I was
psychotic.
curious about that
I'm
as well.
interested. I'm very
Yeah.
interested.
it
Because
feels like the ending was just very fast for me, you know? Like, we went through a lot of stuff in part 5 very quickly. The battle in Detritus is very minimal, really.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't see a lot of it. It doesn't make sense for Spencer to see a lot of it, but I guess Brandon's conditioned me to have big, epic things, and this ending was just, well, we have like 30 pages left, so we gotta like wrap it all up. So, like, all right, boot the Delver out, beat the Delver, have a hook for the next book, and it just felt very fast and convenient. That's the problem.
I agree about. I don't agree. I can see what you mean by the fact that this felt like it should have been bigger. I think a different author would have done it that way. Had something of like this scale happening at the end of the series, or had it done a little bit differently. The fact that Brandon did it this way halfway through does make me think he has something, both different and bigger in mind, because he does do very big escalations by the time we get to the end of a book. If he has something, if this was not the end of a series for Brandon, that actually just makes me more excited, because it's sort of like, what is he going to explore? What information is he going to give us in the next 2 books that is going to make a bigger impact at the end of the entire series? So I guess for me, it's sort of a combination of the fact that didn't see the Delvers as being like quite so eldritch or terrifying or big or evil, plus the fact that, I sort of, we know how Brandon writes books. I just feel like if this is information we needed to have in the middle, that means the ending is going to be different and exciting in a very different way.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my take on that.
I think we keep saying as well that this is halfway through, but like this was originally supposed to be 2/3 of the way through, because that third book turned into 2 books. So
I
in
don't know
terms
if that
of
was solidly outlined, to be honest.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I have
Oh, okay,
no
that's
idea
fine.
how many books. I just assumed it was
4.
a trilogy, and
No,
then
it's
you
4.
guys were like 4 books,
No,
and I was
it's
like,
4.
I pretend I knew all
because
along.
you're not on WoB episodes where we learn these things.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, because it's like we don't know actually how the structure changed, so I feel like that's kind of, or in Brandon's mind, that he changed it
Yeah.
from 3 to 4. So I don't know if that's
That's
really.
true.
This is still the halfway point.
It just didn't meld together well enough for me, and I am used to Brandon endings melding together. I get it. They were constantly talking about we needed to steal a hyperdrive, so I get that Jorgen finding the slugs matters. I guess the slug thing I was not super thrilled by, because we all theorized that Doomslug was the hyperdrive the entire time, so it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like that
That
just
was
didn't
kind of like,
have any impact on me at all.
So that's something for me. I definitely thought, like, oh, what a good twist. I never would have guessed it was Doomslug. And then, you hear other people in the community and like, oh, that was so predictable. Everybody saw it coming a mile off. And I was like, I'm so stupid. I'm really bad at books. I don't know how to guess things.
It didn't help that Brandon at signings, when people were like, what's Doomslug? And Brandon's like, that's a relevant question. I was like, okay.
Oh, Brandon.
Yeah. Just
Brandon.
Yeah. That didn't help.
Speaking of slugs,
Yes.
This actually leads back perfectly to the thing I was wanting to say before and forgot.
Uh-huh.
Hey.
Talking about, do we actually know how safe hyperdrive travel works? Because I am baffled by it.
It's confusing.
There's a thing about a scream happens, and that's a distraction. But I don't know, like, does the Doom Slug make the scream? Because wouldn't making a scream in the ship draw more attention to the ship? Are they making a scream elsewhere while you hyperdrive in this direction? Like, I don't
was
think
talking
we
with
actually
Jess
have
about
that
this,
secret
and
yet.
And I was confused by the exact same thing. And I said the
Yeah.
exact same thing to her, actually.
Thank you. This was another thing. I'm like, am I just dumb and don't understand?
I'm equally baffled.
I also don't understand it.
Okay.
I have theories. My assumption was, I initially thought it was the Kitson Shadow Walkers that were the hyperdrive. And so when it turned out to be the slugs, I was like,
Yeah,
"Do you know
that's
what?
true. Yeah.
So the way I figure it is that they are forcing the slug to make the jump in a painful way. That's what causes the scream. They are forcing it to happen. The eyes look at that because they're looking at the slug. They're not looking at, because Spencer never jumps. Like, no one ever jumps Spencer somewhere other than the slugs. The slugs are the only time we ever see a Spencer jump somewhere where she's not the person doing the jumping.
Right.
So the slug is the focal point for the jump. So the eyes look at the slug, but then I guess because it's just a slug, maybe it doesn't quite it's not quite as like annoying to them.
It doesn't understand that the ship is also there, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't hear the rest of the people. It just hears the slug, and since it's just a slug, it doesn't leave as big an imprint as, say, a human does, or like an AI. It's just a dumb slug.
That was my thought. Was that this is inferred information based on the fact that they have not had a problem with this safe hyperdrive version.
Yeah.
Based on that, I don't think that the scream caught the Delver's attention until Spencer was there.
Yeah.
I think that Spencer was using her cytonic abilities to try and connect to the hyperdrive and figure out what was going on. Spencer, we know, is quite loud enough to draw Delver's attention.
Right.
And because we know that this Delver was watching her all the time, it was present. And then when we see the scream, we see that it doesn't just catch like the Delver's attention out of nowhere. It's looking at Spencer, and the scream just distracts the Delver momentarily from Spencer in that moment. And lets kind of Spencer like, oh my God, get away. Like drop the cytonic sense and let it go. So based on this, like this is my inference that by itself the hyperdrives are not actually loud enough to draw Delver's attention. It's just because this Delver was specifically following Spencer's abilities, and she's also trying to use her cytonic abilities all the time. The scream just happens to be in close proximity, and we notice that the second time that it's there watching Spencer while she watches the engine, that we get this line about like the scream doesn't distract the Delver this time. It's still trying to focus in on Spencer.
A couple of the eyes turn back to her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like we see it happen twice. The first time the scream distracts, the second time the scream doesn't. This because the Delver knows about it, I presume, and is just boring and goes back to looking at her.
Yeah.
So that's my inference of like, I don't actually think the hyperdrives are loud enough to catch the Delver's attention.
I think they are, but they're just not impactful enough. It's like you're like facing in one direction, and something happens behind you that you hear, so like you turn, but there's nothing happening there anymore. So you're not okay. Where exactly did that come from? So it's just like it's not enough to like so that they can pinpoint where it is. It just like it disorients the eyes, perhaps.
So you guys all have a very different concept. My kind of working theory of what was happening, because thinking of the way that I would solve this problem, knowing what we do about the dangers and whatnot, is I got under the impression that the scream was not coming from the hyperdrive itself, because it's just not really clear.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about there being like cytonic communication between the bridge and the engineering room.
Yeah.
And they're like, why would they need cytonic communication? And so I think you go and you put a beacon way out in the middle of some crazy uninhabited space, nothing around for light years. And you cytonically communicate with that beacon, okay, we're about to hyperdrive jump now. They make a scream. So the Delvers like turn in that direction, and then you slip through like unnoticed behind, because it did definitely seem that the scream was making the Delvers turn away. And Spencer was like, oh no, that one has turned toward me, which would be the ship. I don't know how a scream in the ship would distract Delvers from the ship.
I never thought about it like being physical space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought about it being cytonic space.
It's the nowhere.
Because like the scream is what led me to believe and like confirm this is that the hyperdrive is an organic being, for one, because screams are made by things and animals and people. Whereas sort of like I think we kind of know, like, because of just the way the nowhere works, physical space doesn't necessarily have to matter. Is that
spiritual realm?
It's a spiritual realm. Is that like I was never confused about like the fact, like, I don't think the Delver was actually trying to look for the ship. I think it was always looking for Spencer. It just like the Spencer and the hyperdrive just happened to happen simultaneously, which is why the distraction happened. Like I'll take a look at what's that scream. Back to Spencer.
Also, the ship is not causing like inert matter, like a planet or a ship doesn't hurt the Delvers. They don't care about that.
Right.
It's the minds, it's the cytonics, it's the
animal minds.
That.
Animals' minds are not conscious or are fully conscious, which we know conscious behavior is what really aggravates them. It was like when Spencer was talking to the Delver or interacting, they were being other people. They were taking their minds and putting them into other beings. They were only like exploring conscious beings. They weren't like this is a weak example because they only looked at a few people, but it was always people. It was the conscious people that that the Delver needed to understand.
I think it makes sense why they dislike AI so much then, because that is a conscious mind that is also causing a lot of like electronic communication in order to be conscious
in cytonic space.
In cytonic space, and
in the cytoverse,
it would probably be the most painful version.
Is this?
Yeah.
I just reread it last night, and I didn't get an impression that they specifically hated consciousness. I thought it was just the wireless communications. I didn't get that personally.
Because like there was like a line about like the laughter that really caught my attention. It was like the loud cytonic stuff brings the attention to the other communications, the radio and the stuff which brings attention even further down to the people.
What laughter? When?
There was like a moment.
Yeah,
I think it's when Spencer's in the White Room.
In the White Room, talking about this child. I'm looking. Oh, wrong book app.
I remember the laughter is something she specifically reinterprets. That the Delver hears it as painful, and she has to like show no, that's joy, that's happiness, something like that. That does sound familiar.
Why can't I search?
Whilst we're searching, the stuff about the radio waves, the way I interpreted the Delver's attention was when they're in the nowhere, they only care about cytonics. When they come into the real world, they're like, oh, it's not just cytonics I can hear. I can now hear all this electromagnetic spectrum. I can hear everything. Everything's really noisy. It's horrible. You know.
Okay, I touched the mind of the Delver and showed it those annoyances from the perspective of each individual person. I showed it that the buzzing was sometimes laughter. This is what I see, I said to the Delver. So this is what like I meant about like conscious behavior. Like even the act of existing, talking, laughing, crying is probably like conscious behavior, thinking.
Okay.
And the expressions of that. That's what I really got from that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's totally a great point, is that it's an AI is both the outward expression of thinking and it can only exist through cytonic activity. That's perfect. That's sort of like it's probably like the loudest. It's probably the loudest thing to the Delver.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
I like
I
that.
love that.
I like that.
Cool
Yeah.
theory. We just solved,
GG,
came up
Alex.
with whatever. I did it.
I think
Guys, I
See,
think
you're
doom
good at
slugs
reading
are
books.
hyperdrives.
we did it. I think there can't be like a beacon because it's got to be the slugs because that was the whole point of Jorgen's.
And they swap it out.
Yeah, you're right. But I guess just the ship doesn't appear in the nowhere. It's just the Cytonics appear in the nowhere, right? And so if the slug's just there, it's not paying attention to the other things. But I guess
Yeah, because I don't think if Spencer was there, I don't think the Cytonic would have even noticed the scream. I think it was
That's an
specifically looking
interpretation.
in. I think Spencer was touching the Cytonic, trying to reach out and figure out what was going on. So she's using her Cytonic sense. The Delver pokes in because it always does when Spencer. Sometimes even when she's not even trying, it's poking in a lot with Spencer. And so it's noticing Spencer's activity. So like it just like the scream is just like a quick flash and like the what was that?
Yeah, but the scream
nothing.
always happens. The scream is the
Yeah,
important
but-
part for the Delver to
It's
escape.
part,
the
yeah, it's intentional part of the distraction
Yeah.
process is the scream. I don't think it's an incidental thing that they wouldn't have noticed the scream.
Yeah,
I just think that if they've been using it for how many years and that it has never been a problem and it's also related to exactly where the ship is going to be, if physical space doesn't matter, then
That's
like
what I'm saying. It doesn't.
would
It doesn't
why
totally
would
make
be
sense.
able
Yeah.
to- why wouldn't it be able to hear it from wherever it warps to as well?
yeah, no,
so that's why
I know.
I think it can't hear the scream because I don't.
No, I think it can. Like because like all of the eyes turn towards the screen. I don't think it's enough. It's short enough that like they can't pinpoint.
The reason I think it's because we only see it when Spencer is there.
Mhm.
That's
being
why
good.
Spencer being like the point of view character. I don't think she's just an observer seeing this happen and like, oh, this is how the scream works. I think it's because she's there that they're noticing.
I disagree.
I think we're
I
talking about
disagree.
slightly different things
very
maybe.
possibly.
because, like, I think you're Shannon talking about the Delvers noticing Spencer, and I agree that that's a Spencer thing.
And
I think-
hearing the scream.
No, yeah.
Well,
Shannon thinks they only hear the scream because Spencer's there.
I don't agree
Which
with that at all.
I disagree with. I think the scream is always a part of the distraction process. And
Yeah.
the weird
I
thing
don't
that went
think
wrong
it's
was they looked at
distraction.
Spencer instead of the scream.
I think they were not interested in the scream is like the basic thing is that whatever the scream is, they take a look, they're not interested, and that's kind of it. Because otherwise, I think they would follow the slug if it was really that interesting. And we know they don't need to like actually follow it in physical space. So this is just inferred, nothing like lines. This is just all my inferred theory.
I would say that is not how Spencer is understanding it.
Yeah, I
Spencer
agree.
definitely interprets the scream as an intentional distraction
Mhm.
of the Delvers,
And we know
I believe.
Spencer's
She's not
wrong
always right.
sometimes.
No.
But I think
So-
that is her working theory at least. And so that's what we've got to go off of.
I think it's for whatever reason with these slugs, the Delvers can't follow it. Like
Yeah, it
it
must
distracts
be.
them, but they can't like.
No GPS data, honestly.
Yeah, it's just like otherwise it's like yes, they would have tracked down the slug and emerged,
Yeah,
but they can't.
I need a better
Yeah.
explanation of.
It's like,
of
can
why
they
this works.
control when an animal screams? That's the
I
thing.
mean, it just always happens.
Can they
Very
make
well
it? Can they
before.
make it so it only ever screams on like the before the jump, but not during the jump, not after the jump? Like I don't know. That's a little shaky.
As I said, my theory was that the scream was a result of what they do to make it jump.
Yeah, like they're
Yeah.
like maybe they're like
Like
poking it
torturing it or
with
something.
something. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mhm.
Which will be
Yeah,
so fun
that's
for a
why.
Doomslug, but
There's also the chance that like it isn't painful for the Doomslug at all because we know Doomslugs are imitators. Like maybe they just need the Doomslug to imitate a scream.
oh, okay.
In
Just
which
scream at
case-
the Doomslug.
In which case, we're
Jump.
back to the question of how do they satanically induce a scream at the exact right time in order to make this a distraction?
Well, and also like dump
I'm
the
shaky.
Cytonic info of where they want to go as well.
Mhm.
Like that's kind
Yep.
of a thing as well.
So
we know that they do that. So anyway, this is a huge tangent, a huge
Yeah.
aside.
but one more important thing about this is how intelligent are doom slugs?
Yeah.
Because there is that one point in the book where Spencer is like, by who? And Doomslug corrects her by saying,
that is
by
true.
whom?
That's true.
That was
It's
really
like
funny.
It could be just a little funny moment, or maybe it's
No, I don't think. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that matters.
I
And,
mean,
like, this is the only like non-sapient cytonics we see. Which, like,
Yeah.
cool. This might like another example of like cytonics just being a thing in this universe.
Yep.
But could it be more?
And that also points to like why I'm very confident about conscious behavior, because even a smart animal is not always sapient.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, I like that.
Did Spencer has used Doomslug as a hyperdrive, correct?
No. She never
I
did.
don't. There's a point that I'm confused about. When she jumps in Skyward
at the very end.
at the very end, Mbot says Cytonic Hyperdrive
Yeah.
is online.
Mm-hmm.
So either at that point, Doomslug was like, the way I always interpreted that scene was because I kind of assumed that Doomslug was the hyperdrive since that point. That Doomslug was that Cytonic hyperdrive, and then Spencer was just activating it somehow.
Oh, I don't agree with that at all.
So the fact she jumps is I guess that means that Mbot can register when Spencer's the one doing the jump.
Yes.
He has cytonics.
Okay.
He has cytonics in his computer, so
yeah. It's like she describes it as feeling like as her mind melding with the ship, and that's when he's like, "Oh, cytonic hyperdrive engaged."
I think we are given Doomslug at the end of Skyward and the beginning of Starsight. I think those are giveaways to the reader, but because it's not so obvious to Spencer, we see, just because it seems to be so much on her own ability to make the jump. That's why I'm not totally confident. I would argue against her ever having used a hyperdrive before.
I just find it eerily coincidental that like the first time she hyper jumps is like the first time Doomslug is in the cockpit with her, and then the second time it happens is also because Doomslug happens to be in the cockpit with her.
It's got to be Spencer. I would be so upset if that was not the case, because the second time Spencer had to have done that because she had the dump for the info to Starsight. Like it has to be her, and like she
was the one who had the coordinates.
Yeah.
And in every jump in Starsight, she was the one who had the cytonic.
We haven't talked about one other thing in this book, and it's kind of actually. I know I hit about the Delver a lot, but at least from conversation that I've seen, at least on our Discord and the forums, about the very end, because we have not really talked about that, and I think we should talk about that and then do maybe last thoughts, maybe.
Okay.
I was gonna say I've had a lot of restraint not yet talking about my favorite character.
Yeah, you should
talk.
Yeah, you should talk about that.
Because that'll lead into the ending. My absolute favorite part of this book, despite the fact that I love all of like the intercultural stuff, all of the spy stuff, was Braid. I love Braid as a character. Don't judge me, but she's up there with like Renarin and Steris in terms of like hardcore protection squad.
Damn.
Exactly.
That is high praise.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've gotten into a lot of discussions with people who's like, she's just evil. She's just like terrible and, is selfish and whatever. Spencer tried to help her and she didn't want it. So forget her. She's a villain now. And I am definitely not in that camp. I think Spencer kind of thinks, oh, maybe she isn't as brainwashed as I thought. I think she's still very brainwashed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kidnapped at 7? That's That's traumatic. Like you're not just gonna, no matter like how well they connected in 2 weeks, and we know that they didn't connect. Even if they had, that isn't gonna overwrite a lifetime of being like traumatized and like told that you're evil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How to make Feather's favorite characters are give them a lot of self-loathing and give them a lot of discipline to try to keep the consequences of that self-loathing in check. My favorite
Discipline? No way.
my favorite D&D character right now is basically just this right now. Shannon can attest because she's in that group. But yeah, so that's why I love Braid, and I will support her to the end. And I only want good things for her every time she shows up. I'm like,
Braid's
It
really
is very
interesting.
sympathetic. It
I
is
love you.
pathetic.
I just care about her so deeply and the pain that she's in. I feel such empathy for her
It's-
situation.
It's an extremely painful situation that Braid is in right now that she doesn't even that she can't even admit is a bad situation because she's been told that her reaction makes her evil. Her reaction to the bad things that Winzig has done to her makes her bad. And so she's like, okay, well, I guess I'm bad. This proves it.
Yeah.
I would be interested in your. Sorry, I got the specific line because the specific line that I realized is open to interpretation, and I interpreted it one way, and I think this is why some people think that she's not as brainwashed as they say.
This is the one from the
It's-
epilogue?
Yeah,
The very end.
The very end,
We have
where
thoughts. We have
The,
thoughts.
the chapter after the epilogue.
Yeah.
It's the point where Braid has made her offer, and then Spencer's thinking about it, and then it says, as she eyed me, I read something else into the words she said. Helpers rule. My opportunities are here. I'd always seen her as brainwashed. Was that maybe not giving her enough credit? I interpreted this as to when Braid is like, help us rule my opportunities, I take opportunities when I see it. The way I see it is that she's saying, hey, Spencer, do you want to join me? And the humans can then rule the superiority. We'll take over. That's how I interpreted that.
I
I
think
think
she's
turn
very
Winzig.
much about Winzig.
Yeah.
She's unable to question him.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I really liked about her offer to Spencer is that this wasn't signed off by Winzig.
That's true.
She's offering it, and she's like, I can make it work with Winzig.
Yeah.
Implying that, it's sort of like I can convince him this is okay. She did not get permission from Winzig to make this offer to Spencer.
Yeah.
I think this was a real moment of her trying to reach out. So this is kind of what that's the phrasing that gives me hope for Braid's future hopeful healing and escape from Winzig's
Yes.
clutches. But it was this was she didn't get permission, like that's huge. It was just like this was she really actually wanted Spencer to be on her side.
Oh no, that makes
agree with her.
Yeah.
So Spencer near the end theorizes that her shooting down the civilian transport was part of Winzig's plan to make humans look bad. Oh, but if she didn't get permission, that means she legitimately just accidentally killed a bunch of people.
No,
Which is-
just the
that
offer.
part
Just the
was
offer.
part of
Just
it.
the offer. part. Yeah. I think the
Oh.
whole setup of propaganda, go shoot this transport and blame
That-
it
that was on
Spencer,
Winzig's
that was
orders.
Winzig's plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant just the offer
Okay.
she gives to Spencer to like, why don't you and the rest of the humans like come work for us and be our soldiers? Like that offer, and she's like, I can square that away with Winzig. I can make that. I think it was just that offer to Spencer directly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because I think Winzig was planning to just have Spencer take the fall, and like that'll be the end of it, and that's what Braid did. But then right before Spencer leaves, Braid's like, wait, hold on a second.
Okay, so you think Winzig's plan was kill her while she's in the hospital room, then have Braid shoot down a random civilian transport, and then blame it on the girl who died. in
And
the
then they
hospital
get
room.
credit for killing.
For stopping the human threat who's rampaging through Starsight. Yeah.
But the plan wasn't for her to rampage through Starsight. The plan was for her to get shot while she's lying in a hospital room.
Or
No,
something.
they were get rid of her, stage something,
Okay.
and then move her dead body to wherever.
Something like
Something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Like Braid will do something bad, and then they don't have to have Spencer there on camera. They can just say that we did it,
Yeah.
and they'll believe it because we know that there was a lot of fighting and disputing going on at the time.
That makes sense. I felt it was convenient that this coup happened right as Spencer woke up. That's very fortunate for Spencer. Like there
I
were
think
3
that's
whole
the main
days.
character on avoidance.
Yeah,
the main
like-
character has to be awake for events.
I
usually.
know.
I mean, like another way to do it was like she was awakened as the coup is starting, and Kuna's like, "Oh my god!" Da, 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 da. There was another way to do it, but I mean,
It just felt convenient, like adding to
I-
the
it's all-
convenience
it's all
of the ending.
convenient.
You know what it might be, actually? Kuna says that they woke Spencer up specifically to talk to the press. Kuna apologizes for that. Like, I'm sorry, I woke you up a little earlier than normal because we need you to make a statement. Because so it's very possible that Winzik found out Kuna's waking up the human to talk to the press. We need to go.
We need to do this now.
We need to do this now.
That's probably what the timing is.
Yeah, he couldn't allow that to happen.
Winzik needed to be the first one to tell his side. Winzik has now the advantage of having his word made public first, his side made public first. That's the propaganda advantage. And so if he finds out, he needs to be the first one to say the right words. He needs to be the first one to say justice.
Yep. So I really liked Braid because she's basically Spencer from Skyward. And now Spencer has to deal with Spencer from Skyward throughout all the trading.
I can see that comparison.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that.
No,
I don't see the comparison.
But
I'm sorry.
The impulsiveness and such.
Oh, okay.
There's like a line.
In the flight.
There's a line right after the one that you quoted, Ben, where she's like, "This is like if I before this would have been a kind of thinking I would have agreed with." Like that's a line that she says.
Oh yeah, it's literally the next line. The younger me would have applauded what she was doing and helping Winzik.
Exactly. So like this is like past Spencer.
So what did we think about the cliffhanger? I
was fine with it.
Yeah.
I
feel like it was a natural progression. It's like
really
we have more of an inkling of what the Delvers are. We know they live in the nowhere. There's the fact that like there are stable nowhere portals on different planets,
which you can apparently live in and be alive without like
it's like that's where they get the acclivity stone.
Interesting. Yeah,
so there's matter there.
Yeah.
But as for the actual suddenness of it, I'm trying to think of a way of I can't think of a place you could cut it off where like there's other information that I would want. Like right now, I'm okay with it because my big concern was Mbot's state.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like if you cut it off before then we're gonna spend the next few years wondering like, is Mbot okay? What the heck? So this way, like we know that he survived. I don't really care about Doomslug, to be honest. But I don't care. But so got Mbot to safety, and we know that he's going to be okay. Right now, you can't keep just writing the book because to like what happens, like especially if there's about to be a time skip. Like if like the process of getting the split in the superiority might be very interesting, but it also I think could be done. We could just catch up to where they are very easily. And the reveal of what the knower is actually like, I think is best saved for the next book. Like, let's keep something really interesting and exciting for like what that is going to be for the next one. And so I can't see a way it could have been done differently.
I liked the false epilogue. I'm a sucker for stuff like that.
I love it.
Yeah, the epilogue started. I actually thought, I was like, man, there's still 6% of the book left and it's the epilogue. That can't be right. And I was like, man, that's a lot of knowledge. And yeah, so yeah, when you get that feeling of, okay, everything's happened, you've got that calming feeling, and then Spencer's like, something's not right, and then you feel something's not right. And then it goes, bam, here's a new chapter. And you're like, oh, and then it really kicks off. And it's like, I really like that kind of synergy of using the format you have, which is a book, and using that to make the reader feel something. You're utilizing the medium that you have in a really good way.
Yeah.
Like,
I really liked it.
Example of Brandon is an author. He writes books. Like, he can do things with the format of a book in ways that like he couldn't do with a script or a graphic novel necessarily.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Brandon, I like that he didn't let us go on with the false assumption that things in the superiority were going to be okay. Yeah. Like if he ended it in a place where we're like, what if we were like sitting here theorizing, like, do you think Winzik is going to be a problem in the future? Like, let's just get that out of the way. And like, so like, I would prefer having realistic expectations for what the future books are going to be, then starting the next book and being unpleasantly surprised with all of Spence's work maybe being for nothing. It's sort of like, I think this was I think he had to show the Winzik doing his coup and the superiority about to be split, because like I think in terms of like how books are crafted, I think I would have been almost more disappointed to open the next book and find out, time skip or no time skip, that all of a sudden like, oh, Spence's gambit didn't work and the superiority is split and da 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 da. Like I think this gives us better expectations, more clear expectations for what the future of their relations are going to be. So that's another thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was too hopeful at the start of the epilogue. Like, oh, Kuna's on board and they're going to help the humans get acclimated to the superiority. And they talked to Cobb and like
Mortimer got born.
And Mortimer got born. Everyone's happy and the humans are going to be all right. They're going to be able to get out of prison and
everything's going to be fine.
It's going to be great. And like, I don't think that is the place to end the book. I do think we needed a wrench thrown in the gears of some sort.
Winzik was always going to do that. I'm just glad we got it confirmed now. He was always going to do that.
I'm getting the slight impression that Eric, you didn't
Eric
like.
has something to say.
Well, see, I didn't mind the cliffhanger nearly as much as my girlfriend Jess, who hated the cliffhanger a lot. She hated it probably as much as I hated the Delver thing. She just doesn't really like cliffhangers, and it's like, oh, now this book is just unresolved, and now we have a 2-year break, and so we just don't get any resolution. And the way I kind of see it is the only reason why the epilogue was like, wow, everything's hunky-dory and everything's great is because the Delver was lame and nothing actually happened. And like, if the Delver actually caused, like, imagine a different book, okay? That like the Delver broke Starsight in half or something. Then the Delver leaves. And then it's like, wow, what are we going to do next? Then that at least is like a natural progression for this book. Whereas this, everything was fine so easily that we needed another thing to get us excited for the next book. And it just didn't feel natural with what this book was trying to do, in my opinion.
I disagree, because I think that everything that happened at the end we were given it throughout Spence's entire reaction to the superiority and her trying to understand the superiority and her reactions to Kuna and Winzik. Like, I think like if they just split it in half, I think that would have been just kind of too easy. It's just sort of like, oh, actually this whole thing we spent the entire book talking about is not really a problem. Let's just do something else.
Well, I mean, what was talked about earlier was the Delvers destroying everything.
The
like, to be honest,
what we talked about earlier is also like humans' place, because like that took up a lot of thematic space in this book. Was like the conversation about where humans belong. Should we kill them? Are we being too harsh on them? Spencer thinking through her people's place in the universe and what she can do to convince people that they deserve to live. I
am with Eric on this. I will mourn the loss of the book that appeared in my mind the moment that Spencer diverted the Delver to Starsight.
Yep.
Because the moment that happened, I was like, damn, Spencer's just proved what people say about humans the correct. They spent the whole book saying, you're going to accidentally kill people. And she's like, haha, joke's on you. I'm going to accidentally kill everybody. And so...
I get that aspect of it, but that is a very interesting thing.
But it's true, though.
Wow.
It's very funny, but I never thought it was going to go there.
Yeah, but then I did remember, I'm like, I am reading a Brandon book, and Brandon, so we generally always end on a hopeful note, so I know she's probably going to solve this problem and not prove them right. And but that war criminal Spencer, that was
That sounds way more interesting.
I'm not gonna lie, I was way into that idea, and I was like, I know it's going to get resolved.
I just don't
there would have
feel.
been no one left to convince.
Well, there's
plenty.
The
superiority didn't need to like all die there. Like, it's just the regional government, and there probably would have been a lot of
the High
escape.
Chancellor was there.
Well, yeah, okay.
They managed to evacuate a bunch of people before the thing, because this is something I really didn't like. Is they opened the shield on the other side of Starsight to the Delver, and I'm like, is the Delver, can it not just go around to open part of the shield? I'm like, we don't understand how its attacks work, but is it really like so easy that you could just
thinking like as if the Delver knows what's going on down there. It's like it doesn't care that like that side of the anthill is more open. It's just gonna go straight through.
Okay.
It doesn't care.
Yeah, I don't think the shield
This
is
enemy should-
actually a deterrent to the Delver. I think if it just wanted to slide through Starsight would have been, done.
Why didn't it do that? Ah!
Yeah, I was going to say no.
So
Because the shields are definitely a thing it doesn't like.
Shields do work. They just don't last very long.
Right?
Yeah.
That's true. But I guess I'm thinking about cliffhangers I liked. I don't know about you. It's entirely possible people feel differently on cliffhangers. But the cliffhangers I liked are the two that come to mind as Well of Ascension and like Infinity War. Like those are two examples of like there's a big thing that happens at the end, but the entire book is building to an event. And like I don't feel this book was building to that. Like the what happened at the end. It felt kind of like a fake out. Like, yeah, it does do a lot of the governmental things that I hear what you're saying, but like the book was spent about training to fight Delvers. And like, yeah, we learned about the superiority, but like in chapter 4, we was like, oh, this is the book about Delvers.
I think
plot
this
versus
is
theme, maybe.
Yeah.
like a stage magician. Brandon is building the main plot and distracting you with this bright shiny thing, which is the Delvers.
Yeah.
But that's not actually the main plot.
Yeah.
Like the superiority. Like you can't see my hand motions because they're too far down.
It's all good.
That's true, but it definitely just felt convenient that it's like, oh, I gotta have a cliffhanger for the next book to get excited, and
I am
not excited.
Neutral. Well, for me, it was sort of like I was always gonna be excited and wanted to read the new one. So it's sort of like the cliffhanger wasn't like it didn't feel like a hook. It felt like this is what's going to happen next in the story, but we're already at like 500 pages, and he can't write a second book in this. He can't write two at the size of 2 books in one. So like I was just sort of like, oh, the next one. It just felt like this going to continue, and I consider myself fairly cliffhanger neutral. It really depends on what I think from of the creator. And with Brandon, I don't have any doubt that we're going to get a continuation. Sometimes I feel like sometimes TV shows at the end of a season, it'll be like, but what if this is about to be canceled? Or like I don't trust I don't trust the writer to. It just felt like sometimes I do feel it's cheap, but Brandon has earned my trust.
Constant escalation for escalation's sake. Yeah.
Brandon, it's sort of like he wants to continue it. I know he's going to continue it. He's not going to leave us in the lurch, and I trust where he's going to go with it. So it's sort of like for me, this was not a big deal. Whereas like if it was a different writer, maybe it would be. So I'm cliffhanger neutral.
Yeah. So I'm actually a little surprised that you're not a fan of this, Eric, because I feel like if we had gotten something along these lines at the end of Skyward to like better set up the book we got, you wouldn't have had the expectations you had.
It still just doesn't feel
better.
Well, that's the problem with writing a series where it's like we're going to go to completely different places. It's like there's always this hard right turn, and I don't know if that can be done satisfactorily. Like I just don't think that's even possible with everyone being totally on board. It's like you like detritus, out of there. Like that's going to lose readers, right? And I mean, I don't mind the cliffhanger as much, but it's all just convenient. We wrapped up the Delver so quick, and so we have to have another plot thread to have us, go into the end.
I think really what it is that if you weren't satisfied with the theme, then the plot was always going to disappoint you. Because it's sort of like, for me, Morimer didn't feel like a plot device at the end, because Morimer, their story echoed Spencer, like the idea of like having to argue that you are worth keeping around. Like that was like a really powerful connection. And that like it's not made explicit, but this is like a really strong mirror connection. And so like this is like kind of like the difference. Spencer is going through a whole other thing. Like they're training to fight the Delvers. You're totally right. That is the plot. But the theme of it, Spencer is otherwise extremely occupied with her people. And relating to the superiority and finding the similarities between her people and the people of the superiority. Like that's the theme, is like belonging, and like, do we deserve to be here even? So like I feel like that might be the central aspect of like our different takes. Now that I think about this,
I get that with the theme, but like the cliffhanger doesn't connect with the theme that you just said. Like if you're saying
it does.
it doesn't.
It does. The cliffhanger is because Spencer suddenly needs to escape. She suddenly needs to escape because Wenzik is doing a coup. Wenzik's coup is entirely about the existence of humans. It's sort of like it's an escalation of that plot entirely. That's the whole reason. It's not about Delvers. It's about humans and their place in the universe. It's entirely about the theme.
Yes, I
I
just really didn't feel it was
agree.
necessary.
It's made me realize that I haven't really gone into what I really didn't like about the book.
Oh, you should probably talk about that.
I should probably talk about that a little bit. Okay, so I said in the beginning, the first half for me, I thought was terrible. Like, not just like not for me, but I thought it was just like bad, because you spend a good 30% of the book is just her arriving at Starsight, her thinking about going to Starsight, having Kuna and Mbot just explain things to her while she doesn't do anything. One of the things that Brandon normally does pretty well is he normally it manages to put something interesting happen whilst boring things are happening. Like I always think of one of the quintessential scenes of this is when Dalinar and the head Arden he's best friends with Kadash. They have an argument, but they have a sword fight whilst doing the argument, because Brandon's normally pretty good at having multiple things happening when if it was only one, it would be kind of boring.
Right.
So Spencer just spends a lot of time having things explained to her whilst sitting in a room or sitting in Mbot. Then you have the first fight, the training thing, where I knew we didn't know any other characters. The fight happens. I'm like, obviously Spencer and Mbot are going to be fine. So I feel no tension whatsoever. I do not care. That's when you get introduced to the other characters, and I guess that was like, okay, that's all right. But you don't get to know them until, and it's literally at 50% of the
very
way.
externally motivated.
Yeah, I think it was I just wasn't super compelled by Spencer's internal monologues, internal like conflicts, being like, oh man, I'm so bad at this, but people just keep explaining stuff to me anyway. And so it's exactly 50% of the way through the book is when the Delver maze is introduced. That's when I started. I really liked everything Delver related. Everything else, I was like,
so funny.
That's so
yeah.
That's so different, because it's like the conversation is the interesting part. It's like I like that. It's intrigue. It's
the most interesting part of this book to me is the superiority itself.
Yeah,
and the question of, is their philosophy good? Do they actually live up to their philosophy? What have they needed to sacrifice in order to achieve this philosophy? Should the humans be trying to join the superiority? Should we be trying to overthrow the superiority? Mm-hmm. What are their real motivations and things like that? And that was a lot of what we were getting like, okay, we're meeting this official and we're meeting this official and there's tension and there's a trained human here. What the, like all of that was super engaging to me. Trying to figure out these new characters who had a lot of power that were new to Spencer that she needed to figure out quickly.
But we already knew from Defending Elysium that these races were a bit...
I didn't read Defending Elysium until
I actually totally agree with that. I actually completely disagree, because we got like a couple paragraphs on what the superiority were about. It's sort of like, that's not a real exploration.
It's not
like what they actually think, how they think, what, like whether it's worth it.
But what I mean is we already knew from Defending Elysium that they were going to have less than proper ethical answers to some questions, like things that generally as human beings we disagree with. We already knew they were kind of sinister, and so for me, I'm like, whatever the answer is going to be, they're probably just going to be bad.
I mean, they are called the superiority.
They're called the superiority.
They have primary and secondary citizenship.
But like they're
it was pretty very much.
We know that they're.
Maybe this book is better if you didn't read Defending Elysium.
maybe.
I mean, I read Defending Elysium. Then I don't share the same issues that Ben had.
But yeah, it was at that exact halfway point The Delver Maze was good. We start getting to know the new pilots. It made me laugh because oh my god, I spent the whole book calling him Alvin, so I can't remember his name.
Show.
Hesha, Merman, and Vapor all have a scene where they talk to Spencer in depth, and that felt very formulaic. I'm reminded about near the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender, when you get like a sequence of episodes where Aang goes on for a little adventure with all the characters on their own. And it felt like that. Like everyone's like, "Oh man, it's time for Mortimer to have his one-on-one chat with Spencer, so he can get to know him." And it's like, "Oh, it's time for Vapor." It's time for
I can see what you mean.
Real quick,
them.
I want to. Yeah.
It's them. And so it just didn't click with me. But everything Delver, Brandon writes good cosmic horror, and I really liked everything to do with that. But that's the only aspect of the book I liked. And so when it came to the ending and it seems to me the Delver's problem's fixed, I'm like, I don't know if I want to read the rest of the books, because I'm like, I don't know if I care, because I don't.
So I will agree with you that the Delvers were definitely a part of the book that I found the most interesting. Where we differ is I didn't think that was the main point of the book.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that might be the critical distinction. And with the cliffhanger for me, like, okay, I've been thinking about what you said, Shannon, about the theme connecting.
Yeah.
I still don't think this is the only way the book can end, and it just still feels tacked on to me. Like, it's just like, we gotta get people excited for the next book, and it just feels so commercial that we gotta just like have, and it's fine if that worked for others, but it just feels blatant to me. And
all I got
me.
is just I just don't see it that way, and I don't.
That's fine.
I don't think I have any further explanation. It's just
that's fine.
I
That's
think
fine.
Starsight is an exploration of how books mean so many different things to different people.
Yes.
And how something that like, I loved it. It was fine for someone is like, no, it was awful. I wish they had done it totally different. And
this is not the reaction.
Really
this is not the reaction I thought we'd have, like, as a group. Like, that someone hate it.
The Delvers remind me of like, how do realmatic magic systems work, which is always my least favorite part of discussions.
I agree. Actually, this felt like realmatics. I'm like, this is the lore.
It's going to work however it works. Brandon will have some cool explanation. All right, there's the explanation. Let's get back to the interesting stuff, which is characters and the societies. That's what I'm here for.
And that's not the main thing that I read Brandon books for, right? I read it for plot and world building, and characters are probably in third for me. Like, plot is always the most important. I will say the book was paced, I felt, very tightly. Like there was not like a chapter that didn't have a point. I don't know. I just wish the ending was better. Like, it was all good. I just didn't like the ending that Brandon wrote, which is fine. That doesn't mean it's bad, but it just was not to my taste.
For me, the way Spencer dealt with the Delver is kind of the only way you could deal with something like that. It's like the only way.
It's either she loses and everyone dies, or she manages to do something.
That sounds like a much better cliffhanger to me.
Fly a books.
She would die. Is the thing. She would die, and everyone dies.
Oh, and there's so much plot contrivance
everything in the area. So plot contrivance is fine, but only when you like it.
No, I don't. I mean,
things can be convenient. Things can be convenient, but only if it, it's like things are always convenient.
I'm just saying, like, the cliffhanger felt unnecessary to me. Any final thoughts, friends? we're still friends, right?
Yeah, I just liked it like a lot, and I'm super excited for the next. This is.
So there was one writerly thing that Brendan did in this book that I really liked, which was there's a concept of like try-fail cycles, where it's like where a character will try to do something a couple times before succeeding, which Brandon kind of inverted in that, like, Spencer revealed herself to Kuna first, and it went well.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
Then she tried to do it with Braid, and it just did not. Like when Spencer did that, I was like, oh no, you already succeeded with this. It's not going to work.
Right.
And that
True.
didn't.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a fun little thing. Yeah.
Final thoughts, Alyx?
Braid is the best and most interesting character in the series, and I would die for her. But no, I'm very interested in the societies and how the superiority will shake out and figure out its place with humans.
Yes, Ian?
That's what I'm here for.
Also, do we think Detritus is a dead Delver?
Yes, I do. I thought that was going to be the reveal of this book.
Yeah.
Never occurred to me.
So
I don't think so.
The idea, Ben, is that there's tunnels that have symbols that are nowhere symbols that appeared on both the Delver mazes. The Delver maze
And the
and
maze
shipyard.
looked similar. The maze, like the Delver maze that they were training in, looked really similar to the shipyards that they were flying through in Skyward.
Well, the shipyards are Delver
like the
mazes.
tunnels
No.
inside that.
Well, that
Oh
too.
yeah, and the tunnels,
Well,
So it was both.
The times when it looks like the shipyard and the times where it looks like the tunnels were illusions.
Yeah, I thought those were hallucinations.
Yeah, they would go away when she
like
pointed that
pulling,
out.
it was pulling something out of
Yeah.
Spence's head and making.
But
her
it was
see
also-
things like Detritus. I think there was
These
like
things also happened when the Delver was specifically in contact with her, which I thought was like, it was always very weird because she saw like plenty of like weird illusions, like, ooh, it's blood, ooh, it's like weird and flesh, ooh, it's moss.
Yeah.
But when the Delver was peeking in, that's when it looked like Detritus.
Yeah, because it was pulling those memories from her mind.
Yeah.
Why Detritus?
I think it was just
Although-
a
although-
connection with Spencer.
It's
Yeah.
never known.
But there's nowhere symbols on Detritus.
Yes. Hisha mentions those symbols were around where they mined the acclivity stones. I
Yeah,
assume those
that
symbols were
matters a
related.
lot. That matters a lot.
Yeah, so I figured that's just the reason they're in the tunnels on Detritus is because that's where the
no.
humans would go to nowhere and mine acclivity stones and come out.
Okay, I
They're
think
just like
we
the
need.
symbols on a Stargate.
I think
like
we need another
That's
lore
a-
predictions cast. We need another
Yeah.
lore
That's a little
prediction cast.
mundane.
Yeah.
Like, I think having reread that and people were asking, is Detritus a Delver? Like, I don't know if the entire thing is, but like, if you read it
Pieces?
thinking about that, there's illusions there. I think that's
We
a
know
solid theory.
that the humans have been able to get a dead Delver. Why not two?
Yeah, that'd be super easy. They're
I
easy
think-
anyway to kill, so
Yeah.
it's fine.
I think my theory would be Detritus has a natural connection to the nowhere, but not necessarily that it is itself a dead.
Yeah, like
I think more like it has like natural nowhere portals.
yeah, because the nowhere
deep in
symbols
its
were-
tunnels or something.
also
They grabbed
the-
bits of Delver and put it into the planet, sure, but there is
Possibly.
something there because
Yeah.
there.
It has a
There-
connection to the nowhere, definitely. I'll give you that one.
We'll talk about
The
this.
tunnels and
We'll
shipyards.
figure it out.
Okay.
Ben, final thoughts.
I will read the next book purely so that for this podcast. If I wasn't on this podcast, I would not be reading. I wouldn't even finish Starsight, to be quite honest.
Grace
Wow.
Grace said the same thing, that if it wasn't
Wow.
Brandon, she would not read the series until it was done. Yeah,
Yeah.
Grace said the same thing. And
Wow.
yeah, and I
I'll say me and Grace spoke a bit but when I found out she wasn't going to be on the podcast, I started using her as the person to talk to about this. So yeah, me and Grace
Yeah.
agree on a lot.
I thought it was much. This book was much less tense than Skyward, personally, and it was not quite what I was expecting out of a Skyward sequel. But it was pretty good, and I just have personal issues with the ending. That's my thoughts. And I do feel deflated, and I am not excited for the next book.
I'm still excited.
I'm sad about Mbot though. Like I am curious what's going on there. Like that Mbot's arc was really good. We've done a third podcast where we barely talk about it.
Sorry about
Sorry, but we love you. You're just not plot interesting.
We're all in agreement about Mbot being great.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, bring us in because holy crap, this is another ludicrously long episode as per frickin'
2 hours
usual.
and 45 minutes.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
It's time for Who's That Skyward Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw.
I'm gonna lose because
I think I'm also going to lose because I did not reread Skyward.
Yeah,
We-
me
we-
either. And
I did,
had a-
but I'm not great at names. So.
great.
also-
and
don't care about Skyward quite as much, unfortunately. I care about Starsight so much more than I ever care about Skyward.
And I know Jess has sent in some, Ben, and I know she's written most of the Skyward Flight articles, so I'm terrified.
I am basically... So I put out a thing asking people to send in Skyward characters because of how the Skyward just being one book that most guys haven't read in a while. I'm going to go with all the ones that are slightly easier.
That's
I'm not going to go for like the random one-off engineer that was in like 2 scenes. Sorry, Paleo.
Like a medium spicy sort of.
Yes. Cool. So this one was sent in by Maelu73. Mail Lee.
Oh, his name's William. It's just backwards.
William backwards. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So William backwards 73. He sent in. Clue number 1. This character is described as distinctive.
Oh God.
As what?
As what?
Distinctive.
Arturo.
It's not Arturo.
I am not going to be able to make real guesses because I totally don't remember names. But I'm
just
going to go
Skyward
for
characters. We got like
the Skyward Flight person who had like the bright blue hair. That's
Bim.
It is not Bim.
Okay, cool.
Between the 4 of us, we have 20 guesses. We could get through a lot of the Skyward characters.
That's a lot of Skyward
characters. Like, could just get there.
Hey, someone could have sent these in and there's actually a Starsight character in there. You never know.
Is it FM?
It is not FM.
Okay.
Just gonna go with Jorgen. Whatever.
It's Jorgen.
Is
it?
That was my
I thought I'd start easy.
That was my other guess. I was like,
obvious. I was like, George's the only one I'd be able to guess, and we're not going to choose it.
Great. I should have guessed it. I was like, it can't be Jorgen. I'll guess FM.
Flawless.
That was
Let's
my
end the episode.
process.
Great. We did it, everyone. No, just kidding. Let's do it.
Clue number 2 is this character's alive.
That's a joke.
Clue number 3 is this character had a hard time explaining to people how they feel. Clue number 4 is this character frequently gives advice. And clue number 5 is this character feels way down by someone else's expectations.
His name's Jorgen.
Cool.
You didn't get the pun? Oh, that's a good pun. I like that.
That's a good pun. Right. Should I go for a hard one then?
Oh God.
Sure. Harder than Jorgen.
Okay.
Let's not do Spencer next.
You're gonna regret saying that.
I already regret it.
Who's this one from?
Okay, so this next one was sent in by 8Giraffe8, who says we're allowed to criticize their clues as much as we want. So
well, I mean, we always do that anyway.
We always do that anyway.
Aww.
So, clue number 1: this character is female.
FM.
It's not FM.
Ironsides.
It's not Ironsides.
Spencer's mom.
It is not Spencer's mum. Did we get a name for her yet?
No, we don't. We still don't have a name for her.
She moved.
Is it Dr. Theor?
It's not Dr. Theo.
Ooh.
Okay. Clue number 2. This character works in the administration.
Uh-oh.
Administration.
I'm out of guesses.
Kuna.
Bye.
Kuna.
Wait. Are there Starsight characters in here? Or are these Skyward characters?
This is Skyward.
Doesn't matter. I'm guessing.
Okay. I thought it was only Skyward characters.
Yeah, because he set this
Skyward,
up before Starsight came out.
Is it Jorgen's mom?
It is not Jorgen's mum.
Oh, that's good though. She has a name, but I forgot who that name was.
Yeah.
Oh no, maybe I should double check then, just in case. I'll double check.
Does it
There's
end
nothing
with
in here
wait?
There's nothing in here about whether they're not being sent Jorgen's mum, so it might be.
His mom has a last name of Wait.
They just sent in the first name.
Oh, you should definitely go to the cover mine, Ben. Oh my God.
No, I don't think
Look up Jorgen's mom's name because
Just look at Jorgen. Yeah,
just look at Jorgen.
That's true. It'll list like family members, right?
Jorgen,
Yeah.
That would be Jesua Wait.
It's not Jesua Wait.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
Cool.
Okay.
In the administration, who's not Ironsides and not Dr. Theor. That's rough. Is this like another assembly member?
Well, Jorgen's mom was part of the.
Yeah, she was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember any other assembly members.
I'm just like, do we know anything about FM's family? She was
No, I don't
also
think so.
First Citizens,
No.
wasn't she?
Oh, wait.
Yeah, but her family doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Is it Ned's mom?
It's not Ned's mum.
Gosh.
Cool.
We're just like, first mom?
Is
This
it
first mom?
Arturo's mom?
Wait, I think I already guessed, but oh well.
Okay, so clue number 3. This character provokes Spencer about her father.
Ironsides?
Hmm?
Ironsides?
It's not
We
Ironsides.
guessed Ironsides already.
I guessed Ironsides last time, didn't I?
No, it was this time.
I can't
No,
remember.
it was the same
I don't
female.
remember any characters, so my guess is Doomslug. So
It's not Doomslug.
y'all can continue
Is
with
it-
the real game.
Is it Mrs. Vermeer?
Oh,
It's not Mrs.
oh,
Vermeer.
that was who I was thinking, though, Shannon. Oh, good. I didn't remember the name. I think she should get a bonus point for remembering who Mrs. Vermeer was.
I still don't remember.
That's the teacher. She's the teacher.
Yeah, the teacher. But she's not a member of the administration.
But she's the female character in authority.
I know. That's why I was going there. I'm 100% with you there.
I'm like,
I have no idea who's. I don't know. I'll pass.
we're gonna
Cool.
hear it and be like, oh my god, them.
I don't think you will. Character number 4. Clue number 4. This character is around Spencer's age.
In the administration?
Oh, it's Dia Vermeer.
Damn, yeah, it's Dia.
Who?
Boom! That's Mrs.
daughter.
Vermeer's daughter.
Oh,
Yeah, who is clue number 5
Yes.
was in Spencer's class, and she's
Right.
a little
Yeah.
right.
not very
right.
nice person. And she bullies
Yeah.
Spencer about
What
that.
does it mean she's in the administration?
What
does that mean?
That's where her job
because-
placement is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she got a job there. So
Fine.
Yeah, I totally don't remember this person.
they're in
I mean,
one
she's-
scene. I went, Jorgen's
scene.
easy.
One scene.
Give me something harder.
Let's find a middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do one more.
Character number 3 was sent in by Lady Lameness.
Oh, we're screwed.
So, clue number 1. This character has siblings.
Great. Is it Ned?
It's not Ned.
Is it
Okay.
Nightstorm 7, one of Ned's
It's-
brothers?
It's not Nightstorm 7.
Is it
This is the
Nightstorm
one who
6?
died in the maze. Yeah.
It's not Nightstorm 6 either.
Is it who's the girl who doesn't speak the language very well?
Morning
Morning
Tide.
Tide.
Morningtide.
Morningtide.
It's not Morningtide.
Okay.
Was it both Nightstorm 6 and 7? I know Nightstorm 7 was one of them. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Ian's thinking real hard.
I'm just
will be-
trying to remember any mention of the word sibling in a
Yeah.
book I read like a year ago.
The Stormfather.
Well,
The
Warhammer has
Night Watcher.
piblings.
yes, piblings.
Piblings.
I'm gonna pass until I have more clues.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Clue number 2. This character is a pilot.
Is it Jorgen?
It's not Jorgen.
Is it Arturo?
It's not Arturo. Oh, there.
Arturo.
Arturo.
He's not that person either.
Is it Kimmelin?
It's not Kimmelin.
Is it Cobb?
It's not Cobb. Cool. Clue number 3. This character has a slight accent.
We already guessed Kimmelin.
Is it FM?
It is FM. Hey! 3 for 3 for me, Eric.
Hey! Jess had not sent me these before. She likes to watch me suffer. I guarantee it.
Clue number 4 was this character is politically outspoken, and clue number 5 is
okay,
this
that's
character
good.
shares a name with a mythological creature.
I definitely did not remember that she had a sibling.
Wait,
That's for sure.
What's
What was the
FM's
last one?
name? Mythological creature? What?
Wait.
I don't know
What was the clue?
This
Clue
character shares a name with a mythological creature. What was FM's name?
I mean, I would.
This is
that's
you
a
read
clue
this
for
a year
Arturo.
ago. No, that's his call sign. Her
yeah,
name.
his call sign is a
Her
mythological.
Oh
name.
no, her name's
Not her call
Freya.
Oh,
Oh, there you
yeah.
go.
Oh.
What a great name. I love the name Freya.
That is really good.
I mean, I have no doubt that Jess was accurate, considering she's literally read Skyward 7 times to get all the Skyward Flight articles correct.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, "Oh man, I'll really need to update a lot of them in Starsight." And then I'm just thinking to myself, "No, you won't. It'll actually be
Also,
really
Eric,
easy to update them."
You know, you were
Lots
joking
of
about
new articles.
Eric. You know, you were joking about Nightstorm Pilot 7. That was one of the characters she sent in. So when you guessed that first, I was like, "Are you sure Jess didn't tell you she was sending it?"
No. We've just talked about Nightstorm 7 a lot. We have a very interesting relationship. All right.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well, this was a fun and very peaceful Shardcast. And if you want to support...
We're all in agreement.
The superiority would be proud of us.
No
Disagreeing
aggressiveness.
without overt aggression.
I don't know if that was accurate.
Say
I
it to my
don't.
face.
I feel like I was pretty aggressive, and the superiority would not like what I
The
said.
rest of us were good.
Yeah,
We definitely showed a lot
I'm
of,
going to
we
jail.
showed a lot of teeth here too.
Yeah, I'm going into the nowhere, and I guess I'll find some delvers there. But follow us on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can leave us a comment below. You go to the forums, go to Discord. Let's talk about Starsight. Everyone has opinions on this book, and so could you. What? That's what I just said. It doesn't matter. Go on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. Leave us a review on iTunes. You can support conversations like this on Patreon and give us money so Ben's webcam isn't crap. And we will see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Time for the actual podcast after the false ending. Now, bye.
Call.